Imagine a place in northeastern Louisiana, a quiet corner of the world where time seems to slow down. Here, the landscape is a gentle tapestry of green, woven by the Mississippi River and its ancient floodplains. For centuries, this land has been known for its serene beauty, its slow-moving bayous, and its rich, fertile soil. It's a place that feels untouched, a snapshot of nature's quiet persistence. But what if I told you that beneath this tranquil surface lies the ghost of a metropolis, a city that thrived thousands of years before the pyramids of Giza were even completed? This is the story of Poverty Point. For a long time, the most remarkable features of this area were thought to be just natural hills, strange ridges in the earth that locals simply lived with. Farmers plowed their fields around them, kids played on their slopes, and no one suspected they were walking on the ruins of one of ancient America's greatest achievements. It wasn't until the 1950s, when an archaeologist named James Ford saw aerial photographs of the site, that the true picture began to emerge. Those weren't natural hills. They were man-made earthworks, arranged in a stunningly complex and massive design. It was a city hidden in plain sight. This discovery sent shockwaves through the world of archaeology. Who were these people? How did a society of hunters and gatherers, without the wheel, without beasts of burden, without even pottery for cooking, manage to construct such a monumental site? These questions are what make Poverty Point so captivating. It defies our expectations of what ancient people were capable of. It's a puzzle, a 3,500-year-old mystery etched into the landscape of Louisiana. The site itself is breathtaking. It consists of a series of 6 C-shaped earthen ridges, one nested inside the other, forming a huge semicircle that faces the river. If you were to walk from the outer edge of the outermost ridge to its opposite side, you'd cover nearly 3/4 of a mile. These ridges weren't just random piles of dirt. They were living spaces, platforms for homes that kept residents elevated above the damp floodplain. Imagine thousands of people living here, their daily lives unfolding on these massive, curved terraces. But the ridges are just the beginning. Dominating the landscape are several enormous mounds. The largest, known as Mound A, or the Bird Mound, is a masterpiece of engineering. It's over 70 feet tall and shaped like a bird in flight, a colossal effigy that required an almost unimaginable amount of labor. Archaeologists estimate that it would have taken thousands of people, working for months, to move the millions of cubic feet of dirt needed to build it. And here is the most mind-boggling part. Studies suggest it might have been built in an incredibly short period, perhaps as little as 90 days. How is that even possible? How did they organize and feed such a massive workforce? Poverty Point wasn't just a place to live. It was a bustling hub of trade and culture. We know this because of the sheer volume of artifacts found here, and more importantly, where those artifacts came from. The people of Poverty Point didn't have access to stone in their immediate environment. The floodplain is all soil and clay. Yet, archaeologists have unearthed tons of stone tools and decorative objects. This stone was sourced from all over the continent. We're talking about flint from Ohio, soapstone from the Appalachians in Georgia and Alabama, and copper from the Great Lakes region, over 1,000 miles away. This reveals a trade network of staggering scale and sophistication. These weren't just a few isolated groups occasionally trading goods. This was a coordinated, extensive system that funneled resources from across North America into this one central location. Poverty Point was a true cosmopolitan center, a place where people, ideas, and materials converged. The iconic artifacts of the site are the small, big globe objects known as Poverty Point objects, or people. They come in all shapes, spheres, cylinders. Bikunzan were used for cooking. Since they didn't have pottery, they would heat these clay balls in a fire and then drop them into pits with their food to cook it, like a prehistoric crockpot. So why is this called? Chapter 1. Because Poverty Point represents a beginning, but a very mysterious one. It appears in the archaeological record almost fully formed, without a clear developmental buildup. It was a complex society that emerged, flourished for several hundred years, and then, just as mysteriously, vanished. The people seem to have simply walked away, abandoning their great city. The site lay dormant for centuries, its grand earthworks slowly eroding, its purpose forgotten, until its rediscovery in the modern era. It challenges our traditional models of societal development, which usually see things like agriculture and pottery as necessary precursors to building large, permanent settlements. The people of poverty pointed it their own way. They were non-agricultural hunter-fisher-gatherers who created a city, a trade empire, and monumental architecture that would not be surpassed in North America for another 2,000 years. They were an anomaly, a brilliant flash of complexity in the ancient world. As we stand here today, looking out over these quiet, grass-covered mounds, we're looking at the legacy of a people who were innovators, engineers, and artists. They reshaped their world on a massive scale, driven by a vision we can now only guess at. Was it a religious pilgrimage site? A massive trading emporium? The seat of a powerful chieftain? The truth is, we don't know for sure. And that is the enduring magic of Poverty Point. It's a place that asks more questions than it answers, inviting us to wonder, to explore, and to imagine the lives of the people who called this incredible place home. In the chapters to come, we will delve deeper into the specific features of this ancient city. We'll examine the mounds one by one, explore the artifacts and the stories they tell, and investigate the theories about who these people were and what happened to them. This is just the beginning of our journey into the heart of one of America's most profound ancient mysteries. So stick around, because the story of Poverty Point is a story that needs to be told. Thanks for watching, and if you're as fascinated by this as I am, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Have you ever wondered what this land was like long before the city skyline we know today? Let's turn back the clock, way back, about 3,500 years to 1500 BCE. This isn't a story of kings or empires just yet. It's a story of the land itself, a vibrant, untamed world that set the stage for one of history's great mysteries. Imagine a climate slightly different from today, perhaps a bit wetter, with more predictable seasons. This meant the rivers flowed fuller and more consistently. The main river, the lifeblood of this region, wasn't just a single channel, but a complex web of streams, marshes, and floodplains. Every year, when the waters rose, they would deposit a rich layer of silt across the land, creating incredibly fertile soil without anyone needing to plow a single field. This natural abundance was the foundation for everything that followed. Stretching out from the riverbanks were vast, dense forests. These weren't the managed woodlands we might see today. They were a wild mix of ancient trees. Towering oaks, sturdy maples, and resilient pines created a thick canopy. This forest was a treasure chest of resources, though it provided fuel for fires to cook and keep warm. It was the primary building material for shelters, tools, and eventually, much larger structures. People would have learned which trees were best for which purposed hardwoods for tools and supports, softer woods for other uses. The forest was a combination of a hardware store and a fuel station, all provided by nature, and this world was teeming with life. The forests were home to herds of deer, wild boar, and smaller game like rabbits and squirrels. These animals were a crucial source of protein. Their hides were used for clothing, and their bones were carved into essential tools like needles, awls, and fishhooks. You didn't need domesticated cattle when the forest provided such a reliable bounty. Hunting would have been a fundamental skill, passed down through generations. With a deep understanding of animal behavior and seasonal patterns, the rivers and wetlands were just as productive. They were filled with fish of all sizes, from small panfish to massive sturgeon that would have seemed like river monsters. Mussels and other shellfish could be gathered from the shallows. Flocks of ducks, geese, and other waterfowl would have been abundant, especially during migration seasons. Fishing with nets woven from plant fibers, simple weirs, or spears carved from wood would have yielded huge returns. This aquatic pantry was available year-round, a dependable food source that complemented what the forest offered. But it wasn't just about food. The natural world provided everything needed for a complex society to begin. Clay from the riverbanks was perfect for making pottery vessels for storing food, cooking, and carrying water. Stones of all shapes and sizes could be found and knapped into sharp points for spears and arrows, or ground into axes for felling trees. The forest also offered medicinal plants, dyes for decorating pottery and clothing, and fibers for making rope and nets. It was a complete system. So, How did all this lead to a monumental settlement? It's a simple but powerful equation. Abundant resources plus a stable environment equals surplus. With so much food and material readily available, people didn't have to spend every waking moment just surviving. They had time to think, to plan, to organize. They could afford to gather in larger and larger groups, confident that the land could support them. This surplus is the key. It allowed for specialization. Some people could focus on becoming expert hunters, others on crafting better tools, and others on spiritual or leadership roles. This cooperation and division of labor are the first steps toward building something bigger than a small village, and that's exactly what happened here. They began to build, not with metal, not with beasts of burden, but with human ingenuity and the materials the land gave them. They could organize large groups of people to move earth, cut timber, and construct enormous ceremonial structures. They were building a city, a social and spiritual center, thousands of years before what many would consider the necessary technology. This ancient settlement stands as a testament to the power of the natural world and human adaptability. It shows us that the path to civilization isn't a single, straight line. There are many ways to build a complex society, and here, it was built on the incredible generosity of the forest and the river. They didn't need to invent farming or metallurgy because the environment already provided a version of paradise. By understanding this land before the city, we can truly appreciate the incredible achievement of the people who lived here. They weren't primitive. They were masters of their environment, living in a balanced and sustainable way that allowed them to create something extraordinary. They listened to the rhythms of the seasons, understood the gifts of the ecosystem, and used that knowledge to build a world of their own. In our next chapter, we'll step into that world and explore the monumental structures they built and what those structures tell us about their lives, their beliefs, and their society. The story of this forgotten city is just beginning. Thanks so much for watching. And if you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I do, make sure to like and subscribe for more. See you next time. Welcome back, History Explorers. Today, in Chapter 3, we re-journeying deep into the past to meet the people of the archaic world and ask a fundamental question. Who built Poverty Point? Before we can understand the marvel of this monumental site, we first need to understand the people. Let's set the scene. The Archaic period in North America, stretching from roughly 8,000 to 1,000 BC, was a time of profound adaptation and innovation. The Great Ice Age glaciers had retreated, leaving behind a new world. Forests reclaimed the tundra, rivers carved new paths, and the climate stabilized into something resembling what we know today. The people living in this changing world were no longer the big game hunters of the Paleontine period. They were hunter-gatherer fishers, masters of their local environments. Imagine small, mobile family groups, perhaps 20 to 50 people, moving with the rhythm of the seasons. Their lives were an intricate dance with nature. In the spring, they might gather at a riverside to catch the spawning runs of fish like shad and sturgeon. As summer bloomed, they would collect berries, nuts, and a vast array of edible plants. With the arrival of autumn, the focus would shift to harvesting hickory nuts and acorns, a crucial source of calories to last through the winter. And throughout the year, they hunted deer, turkey, rabbit, and other game that thrived in the rich woodlands of the southeast. This wasn't a life of desperate survival. It was a life of deep, accumulated knowledge. These people were expert botanists, zoologists, and geologists, all without the formal titles. They knew which plants were food, which were medicine, and which were poison. They understood the habits of every animal in their territory. This intimate connection to the land was the bedrock of their culture. Instead of constantly roaming vast distances, archaic groups tended to have a home territory. They practiced what archaeologists call a seasonal round, moving between different established camps throughout the year to efficiently harvest resources as they became available. A winter camp might be in a protected river valley, while a summer camp could be near a berry patch or a good fishing spot. This cycle wasn't aimless wandering. It was a strategic, sustainable way of life, passed down through generations. To live this life, they developed a sophisticated toolkit. If you were to stumble upon an archaic campsite, you wouldn't find pottery just yet, that comes later. Instead, you'd find an array of beautifully crafted stone tools. The hallmark of the period is the atlatl, or spear thrower. This wasn't a simple spear. The atlatla was a wooden shaft with a hook at one end that effectively lengthened the thrower's arm, allowing them to hurl a dart with incredible speed and force. It was a game-changer for hunting, enabling them to take down animals like deer from a safer distance. They also created a variety of projectile points, what many people call arrowheads, though bows and arrows wouldn't become common for thousands of years. Dizzy points, made from local chert or flint, were carefully shaped for different purposes. Beyond hunting, they had tools for every task. They fashioned stone axes and adzes to clear trees and shape wood for shelters, canoes, and tools. They used grinding stones, called manos and matates, to process tough nuts and seeds, breaking them down into flour. Bone and antler were turned into sharp bowls for sewing hides, fishhooks for catching supper, and ornate pins for personal adornment. They even wove baskets and nets from plant fibers, tools that were essential for gathering and storage, but rarely survive in the archaeological record. What we see in their toolkit is ingenuity and resourcefulness. They used what was available, transforming river cobbles, deer antlers, and fibrous plants into the technology they needed to thrive. One of the most fascinating innovations of the late Archaic period was the use of soapstone. This soft, metamorphic rock was perfect for carving. People would travel to specific quarries, sometimes hundreds of miles away, to mine large blocks of it. They would then painstakingly hollow them out to create heavy, durable bowls. Why was this so important? Before pottery, cooking was often done by dropping heated rocks into a skin-lined pit or a woven basket filled with water. It worked, but it was inefficient. Soapstone bowls could be placed directly over a fire. This stone boiling technology revolutionized cooking, allowing for more efficient stews, soups, and rendering of nut oils. This ability to extract more calories from their food was a major step forward, supporting larger populations and a more settled lifestyle. These heavy bowls are a clue, a sign that people were becoming less mobile, perhaps staying in one place for longer periods. So, let's build a picture of a late archaic community in the lower Mississippi Valley. Around 1700 BCE, we see several family groups, connected by kinship and tradition. They live in circular homes, made of wood and thatch. They possess a deep understanding of their world, moving seasonally between camps but always within a known territory. They have a diverse and reliable food base, from the deer in the forests to the fish in the bayous, and the nuts from the hickory groves. They have an impressive array of tools, from the powerful atlat tool to the revolutionary soapstone bowl. Life is becoming more secure, more predictable. The population is slowly growing, and social networks are expanding. People are trading, sharing ideas, and coming together in larger groups for ceremonies or special events. It is out of this very context, this world of sophisticated, semi-sedentary hunter-gatherers, that something extraordinary emerges. These are the people who possessed the knowledge, the social organization, and the stability to undertake a project on a scale never before seen in North America. They were not simple, nomadic wonders. They were organized communities with shared beliefs and the capacity for collective action. They had the time, the resources, and the motivation to do more than just survive. They were ready to build. They were ready to create a place that would echo through the millennia. They were the people who built Poverty Point. In our next chapter, we'll finally arrive at the site itself. We will walk among the massive earthen ridges, stand in the shadow of the great mounds, and explore the meaning behind this incredible landscape. We'll ask why they built it and how a society without draft animals or the wheel could move millions of cubic feet of earth. The foundation has been laid. We now know the people, their world, and their way of life. The stage is set for one of the greatest stories in American archaeology. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the archaic world. If you're enjoying this exploration of the past, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you want to miss our arrival at Poverty Point. See you next time. Welcome back to our series on the wonders of the ancient world. Today, we're diving deep into a question that has puzzled archaeologists for decades. Why here? Why this specific spot in northeastern Louisiana for the monumental site of Poverty Point? It's not just a random collection of mounds. It was a bustling metropolis, a cultural and economic powerhouse over 3,000 years ago. So, what made this location so special? Let's uncover the secrets that drew thousands of people to build this incredible city. One of the biggest clues lies in the landscape itself. Poverty Point is strategically perched on a landform called Mound Ridge, a relatively high, flat bluff that overlooks the Mississippi River floodplain. Now, you might be thinking, what's so great about a bluff? Well, in a region prone to seasonal flooding, being on elevated ground was a huge advantage. It meant their homes, their ceremonial grounds, and their food stores were safe from the rising waters. This natural flood protection offered a stability that was rare and incredibly valuable. It wasn't just a place to live. It was a safe haven, a reliable sanctuary in a dynamic and often unpredictable environment. This security would have been a massive draw for people looking to settle down and build a community. But it wasn't just about staying dry. The location was a paradise of resources. The surrounding floodplain, enriched by the river's deposits, was an incredibly fertile area. It supported a rich diversity of plants and animals. Think about it. Abundant fish from the rivers and bayous, waterfowl, deer nuts, and edible plants. For a society of hunter-gatherers, this was like living next to a giant all-you-can-eat buffet. They didn't need to practice large-scale agriculture because nature provided everything they needed in abundance. This ecological richness meant they could support a large, concentrated population without the constant struggle for subsistence that many other ancient peoples faced. They had the luxury of time and resources, which they could then invest in other pursuits, like, say, building one of the largest earthwork complexes in the ancient world. Now, let's talk about connectivity. Look at a map of the region, and you'll see that Poverty Point is at a nexus of waterways. It's near the Mississippi River, the great aquatic highway of North America, and it's also close to other major rivers like the Arkansas and the Washita. In an era without roads or wheeled vehicles, rivers were the interstates. They were the primary routes for travel, communication, and, most importantly, trade. Being situated at this riverine crossroads gave the people of Poverty Point unparalleled access to a vast network that stretched for thousands of miles. It was the perfect spot to become a central hub, a meeting point for people from all over the continent. And the evidence for this vast trade network is simply astounding. Archaeologists at Poverty Point have found materials that came from incredibly far away. We're talking about stone tools and materials sourced from the Washita and Ozark Mountains, hundreds of miles to the west. They found soapstone 4 bowls from the Appalachian foothills in Alabama and Georgia, over 600 miles to the east. And most remarkably, they discovered copper from the Great Lakes region, more than 1,000 miles to the north. These weren't just a few stray items. We're talking about tons of material being transported over immense distances. This wasn't casual, opportunistic trade. This was a sophisticated, organized, and large-scale network, and Poverty Point was its epicenter. The site's strategic location made it the logical destination for all these goods, a place where different cultures could meet, exchange materials, and share ideas. So, when we combine these factors, a clear picture emerges. You have a location that offers safety from floods, a land of incredible natural abundance, and a prime position at the heart of a continental trade network. But there might be another, less tangible reason people gathered here. The sheer scale and precision of the earthworks suggest a powerful social or religious pull. Was this a pilgrimage site, a place of great spiritual significance? The concentric ridges, which may have served as both residential areas and a giant solar calendar, point to a highly organized society with a shared belief system. The act of building something so monumental would have required a huge, coordinated labor force, all working towards a common goal. This shared purpose itself could have been a powerful magnet, drawing people in to be part of something grand, something sacred. Imagine being an ancient traveler, journeying for weeks through forests and along rivers. Then, you arrive at Poverty Point and see these massive, perfectly formed earthen ridges and towering mounds. It would have been an awe-inspiring sight, a clear signal that this was a place of power, wealth, and immense importance. It was more than just a convenient place to live. It was a statement. It declared itself as the center of the world for the people of that time. The monumental architecture wasn't just a byproduct of the location's advantages, it became an advantage itself, broadcasting the prominence of the community and attracting even more people to join. The choice of this location wasn't an accident. It was a masterstroke of ancient engineering, resource management, and social organization. The founders of Poverty Point recognized the unique combination of natural advantages. This spot offered high ground, rich resources, and strategic river access. They leveraged these advantages to create a thriving city and a commercial empire that dominated the region for centuries. It was a place where safety, sustenance, and connection converged. But it also became a place of shared identity and belief, where thousands came together to build a wonder of the ancient world. The story of why people chose this location is the story of how a gathering place grew into a great city, whose legacy continues to fascinate us to this day. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this exploration of Poverty Point, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in our series. See you next time. As the sun dips low, casting long shadows across the land, imagine standing here with me at the heart of an ancient marvel. Welcome to Chapter 5 of our journey, the grand design. We're about to walk through the breathtaking layout of one of the most incredible earthwork sites ever conceived. Picture this: 6 enormous, concentric earthen ridges, like ripples in a pond, frozen in time. They're not perfect circles, but semi-octagons, meticulously shaped by hands from thousands of years ago. We're standing in the center, in what's known as the Central Plaza. It's a vast, open space, spanning nearly 37 acres. Feel the scale of it. This wasn't just an empty field. It was the ceremonial and social heart of a thriving community, a stage for gatherings, rituals, and daily life, all enclosed by those magnificent earthen walls. Look around. The ridges rise gently from the plaza floor. They're not walls in the defensive sense, but something more profound. Each ridge is separated from the next by a shallow ditch, or borrow pit, from where the builders dug the soil. Standing there, you can see how they arc away into the distance, forming a C shape with an open side facing east, perhaps to greet the rising sun. Think of the effort, the sheer manpower required. Millions of basket loads of earth, moved without beasts of burden or wheeled carts. It's a testament to incredible organization and a shared vision. As we walk from the Central Plaza towards the ridges, you'd have to cross these ditches. The ridges themselves are broken by aisles, like spokes on a wheel, radiating out from the center. These pathways provided access, dividing the great enclosure into distinct sections. Archaeologists believe these divisions might have been significant, perhaps aligning with different family groups or clans, each with their own place within this grand, organized cosmos. The entire design is a masterclass in geometry and social engineering, a physical map of a society's structure and beliefs. Now, let's turn our attention to the mounds. They are the silent giants of this landscape, rising dramatically from the flat plaza. The most prominent, of course, is Mound A. It's not just a pile of dirt. It's a monumental, multi-stage construction that towers over 70 feet high. From its summit, you could see the entire complex, the ridges stretching out below, the river winding in the distance. It was a place of power, a platform for the homes of leaders or for the most sacred ceremonies, connecting the people on the ground with the world of the spirits in the sky. But Mound A doesn't stand alone. There are other mounds, each with its own story. Mound B, just to the north, is a conical burial mound, a place of reverence and remembrance for the honored dead. Other smaller mounds are scattered throughout the site, each likely serving a specific purpose within the community's ceremonial life. Walking among them feels like moving through a sacred geography, where every feature, every contour of the land is imbued with meaning. Let's imagine what it would have been like at dusk, 3,000 years ago. The cooking fires are lit, their smoke curling up into the evening air. The sound of voices and laughter echoes across the plaza. From atop Mound A, community leaders look out over their world, a world they literally built from the earth up. The ridges aren't just boundaries. They are a declaration of presence, a claim to this place. They are a work of art on a continental scale. The layout isn't random. The alignment of the aisles, the orientation of the mounds, the very opening of the C-shape towards the east, it all suggests a deep understanding of cosmology and astronomy. This wasn't just a place to live. It was a living calendar, an observatory, and a ceremonial center, all in one. The people who built this were not just surviving, they were thriving, expressing their worldview through this massive, enduring earthwork. As we continue our walk, the sheer scale is what stays with you. The outer ridge is nearly 3/4 of a mile across. To walk its entire circumference would take time, giving you a chance to reflect on the immense labor and dedication it represents. You can run your hand along the grassy slopes, feeling the compacted earth, and connect directly with the people who shaped it so long ago. The genius of the design is in its integration with the natural landscape. It's built on a high bluff overlooking a river, a strategic and beautiful location. The builders didn't fight the land. They worked with it, enhancing its features to create something that was both human-made and deeply natural. The ridges follow the contours of the bluff, creating a harmonious blend of culture and nature. Standing here, as the last light of day fades, it's easy to feel a sense of awe. We're walking through the ghost of a city, a ceremonial landscape that has outlasted its creators by millennia. The grand design is more than just an archaeological feature. It's a message from the past. It speaks of community, of faith, and of the incredible potential of people working together towards a common goal. This place was a statement, and it's a statement that still resonates with power and mystery today. Thank you for walking with me through this incredible design. The complexity and beauty of this layout give us just a glimpse into the minds of its builders. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the mysteries of the mounds themselves. Don't forget to subscribe for more of our journey into the past. Have you ever wondered what it takes to build a city? Not with bulldozers, cranes, or dump trucks, but with human hands alone. Today, we're rejourneying back in time to explore an engineering marvel that defies our modern imagination. The construction of a metropolis using nothing but baskets of earth. 30 million baskets, to be precise. That's not a typo. 30 million. Picture this. A vast, sprawling landscape, buzzing with the energy of thousands of people. Each person carries a woven basket, filled to the brim with soil. This isn't chaos. It's a perfectly choreographed dance of community and construction. The air is filled with the rhythmic sounds of digging, the soft thud of earth being emptied, and the murmur of coordinated effort. This is a story of how human ingenuity and collective spirit literally moved mountains, or at least created them. The fundamental building block of this ancient city wasn't stone or wood, but earth itself. The process began with digging. Workers would loosen the soil with simple tools, perhaps pointed sticks or clamshell hose. Then, they'd scoop the earth into their baskets. These baskets were masterpieces of practicality, woven from river cane or other local plants, designed to be sturdy enough to hold the weight of damp soil, yet light enough to carry. Imagine the sheer scale. If one basket held about 50 pounds of soil, 30 million baskets would mean moving 1.5 billion pounds of earth. To put that into perspective, that's the weight of more than 3 Empire State Buildings. And all of it was moved by people, one basket load at a time. It's a number so large it's hard to comprehend, a testament to what a unified community can achieve. So how did they do it? The key was organization. This wasn't just a matter of everyone grabbing a basket and dumping dirt randomly. There was a plan, a brilliant piece of ancient engineering. Archaeologists believe the work was done in stages, with different groups assigned to specific tasks. Some would dig, others would transport, and a specialized few would oversee the placement of the soil. Think of it like a human conveyor belt. A line of people would pass baskets from the Boropita area where the earth was being dug up all the way to the construction site. This chain of hands would have been incredibly efficient, minimizing the distance any single person had to walk and keeping the flow of material constant. The coordination required would have been immense, relying on shared understanding and clear communication. As the baskets arrived, the real art began. The earth wasn't just piled up. It was layered and compacted. Each load was carefully placed, spread evenly, and then tamped down to create a solid, stable foundation. They might have used their feet, or perhaps wooden tools, to pack the earth tightly. This process was crucial. Without proper compaction, The massive earthen structures they were building would simply wash away in the first heavy rain. They also understood the importance of different soil types. They would have selected specific kinds of earth for different layers: sticky clay for a water-resistant cap, and looser, sandier soil for the core. This shows a sophisticated knowledge of geology and engineering, passed down through generations. They weren't just moving dirt. They were sculpting the land with purpose and expertise. And what were they building? They were creating the very ground beneath their feet. They raised huge earthen mounds, some reaching heights of 100 feet, which would serve as the foundations for temples, elite residencies, and important public buildings. Elevating these structures protected them from floods and gave them a commanding view of the surrounding city. It was a statement of power, permanence, and reverence. They also constructed massive ridges and plazas, leveling large areas for public gatherings and creating a complex urban landscape. This wasn't just a collection of huts. It was a planned city with a defined layout, all shaped from the earth itself. The ridges might have acted as causeways or defensive walls, channeling the movement of people and water throughout the city. The social aspect of this undertaking is perhaps the most inspiring part of the story. Building a city like this would have been a massive community project. It likely involved almost everyone: men, women, and even older children playing their part. This wasn't forced labor in the way we might think of it. For many, it was likely a communal, even spiritual, act. These construction projects may have been tied to the seasons, with the most intensive work happening during the agricultural off-season. It would have been a time for the community to come together, reinforcing social bonds or physically building their shared home. Feasts and ceremonies would have accompanied the work, turning a monumental task into a celebration of their collective identity. Imagine the sense of accomplishment, watching a great mound rise from the flat plain, knowing your own hands, your own sweat, contributed to its creation. Every basket of earth was a personal investment in the future of the community. It was a physical manifestation of their social contract, a promise to work together for the common good. This process, repeated 30 million times, slowly but surely transformed the landscape. Over years, perhaps even decades, a city rose from the ground. No engines roared, no exhaust filled the air. There was only the sound of human effort, the quiet determination of a people building their world. When we look at the remnants of these ancient cities today, it's easy to see them just as grassy hills. But beneath the surface lies a story of incredible industry and cooperation. It challenges our reliance on technology and reminds us of the immense power of human beings working in concert. It's a soothing thought, in a way, that with enough time, enough people, and a shared vision, we can create something truly monumental. The legacy of these basket carriers isn't just in the mounds they left behind. It's in the proof that a society can organize itself to achieve incredible feats. They understood principles of engineering, logistics, and social management that we still use today. They just applied them on a purely human scale. So the next time you see a massive construction project with all its modern machinery, take a moment to think back to the city built by hand. Think of the 30 million baskets of earth, each one a symbol of human effort and community spirit. It's a powerful reminder that our greatest tool has always been, and will always be, our ability to work together. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, consider subscribing for more explorations of our amazing human history. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through the mysteries of Poverty Point. Today, we're tackling the big one, the centerpiece of this ancient city. Mound A. This isn't just a pile of dirt. It's a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering, and a symbol that has puzzled archaeologists for decades. Get ready, because we're about to explore the eagle-shaped monument. Standing at over 72 feet tall, Mound A is the largest earthwork at Poverty Point, and the second largest in North America from its time. To put that in perspective, that's like a 7-story building, all constructed by hand, basketful by basketful, thousands of years ago. The sheer scale is but it's not just its size that captivates us. It's its shape. From above, Mound A clearly resembles a bird in flight. Its broad wings stretch out, and its head points west, directly toward the setting sun on the equinox. This orientation is almost certainly not a coincidence. It suggests a deep connection to the cosmos, to the cycles of the sun, and to the spiritual beliefs of its builders. Many researchers believe it's an eagle, or perhaps a falcon, powerful birds of prey that held significant meaning in many Native American cultures. They represent strength, vision, and a connection to the sky world. So, how did they build this colossal structure? It's one of the greatest debates surrounding Mound A. Early theories suggested it was built over centuries, layer by layer, but recent soil analysis tells a much more dramatic story. Core samples reveal that the main platform of the mound was constructed in an astonishingly short period, perhaps as little as 30 to 90 days. Think about that. An army of laborers, working together with incredible coordination, moved an estimated 238,000 cubic meters of earth in a matter of months. This wasn't a slow, gradual project. It was a massive, unified effort, almost like a prehistoric flash mob of builders. This implies a highly organized society with a powerful leader or a compelling collective belief that could mobilize thousands of people. What could possibly motivate such a feat? Was it a charismatic chief, a religious imperative, or a response to a celestial event? The answer remains buried with the past. The mound is actually a complex of different parts. There's the main conical platform, which is what gives it its height. Then, extending from this platform is a long, flat ramp that slopes down to the east, forming the bird's tail. Finally, there are the wings that sweep out to the north and south. This multi-part construction suggests it wasn't just a monument to be looked at, but a space to be used. What was its purpose? This is where the mystery deepens. Was it a ceremonial stage? Archaeologists have found post holes on the summit, suggesting some kind of structure once stood there. Imagine a temple or a chief's residence perched atop this giant effigy, visible 4 miles around. It would have been an undeniable statement of power and authority. From that vantage point, a leader could oversee the entire settlement, the plaza, and the heavens. Another theory is that it was a place for public rituals. The broad ramp could have served as a grand staircase for processions. Picture ceremonies timed with the solstices or equinoxes, with priests or leaders ascending the mound as the sun set perfectly behind them. The entire community, gathered in the grand plaza below, would have witnessed a powerful display of cosmic and earthly power intertwined. Then there's the cosmological interpretation, the bird shape. The solar alignment all points to a structure designed to mirror the universe, as its builders understood it. The mound may have been a physical representation of their creation stories or their worldview. By building this effigy, they were grounding their beliefs in the very landscape, making their world a sacred space. Adding another layer of intrigue, there's a smaller, older mound buried beneath the northern wing of Mound A. This suggests the location was already considered special long before the giant bird was constructed. They didn't just pick a random spot. They built upon a place that already held significance, amplifying its power. Despite extensive study, Mound A has yielded very few artifacts from its core. This lack of everyday items, like pottery shards or tools, reinforces the idea that it was primarily a sacred or symbolic structure, not a place for living. Its purpose was grander, more abstract. It was built not for shelter, but for meaning. So, when we look at Mound A, we see more than just an ancient earthwork. We see the ambition of a society, the skill of its engineers, and the depth of its spiritual life. It's a symbol of leadership, a stage 4 ceremony, and a map of the cosmos, all rolled into one. It stands as a testament to the incredible ability of people to come together and create something monumental, something that would endure for millennia. The bird of Poverty Point may be silent, but it speaks volumes about the people who gave it flight. What do you think its primary purpose was? A ruler's throne? A celestial calendar? Or something else entirely? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Mound A. If you enjoyed this exploration, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss our next chapter, where we'll investigate the daily life of the people who call this incredible city home. See you next time. Welcome, bike. Let's settle in and travel back in time to a place where life moved with the rhythm of the sun and seasons. We're exploring Chapter 8, the people who lived on the ridge. Close your eyes for a moment and picture a gentle, rolling landscape. The world is a tapestry of green and gold, bathed in the soft light of dawn. On the crest of a long, curved ridge, a small settlement awakens. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. The houses here aren't grand structures of stone, but humble and sturdy dwellings, born from the very land they stand upon. Walls of packed earth and clay, smoothed by countless hands, rise to meet thatched roofs. They are warm in winter and cool in summer, a natural shelter in perfect harmony with the environment. Inside one of these homes, a family begins to stir. The first light filters through a small opening, painting a soft stripe across the floor. At the center of the single room is the hearth, the heart of the home. It's a simple circle of stones, blackened by years of use. Last night's embers still glow faintly, a warm, orange heart beating in the seamy. A woman kneels, gently blowing on the embers, coaxing them back to life. She adds small twigs, then larger pieces of wood, until a small, steady flame flickers and dances, casting moving shadows on the walls. The crackle of the fire is the first sound of the new day, a comforting promise of warmth and nourishment. A large clay pot is placed over the fire, filled with water fetched from a nearby spring just yesterday evening. Soon, the water will be warm enough for a simple morning meal, perhaps a porridge of ground grains and foraged berries. The aroma begins to fill the small space, a scent of earth and sweetness. The rest of the family slowly rises from their sleeping pallets of woven reeds and soft furs. There are no sudden alarms here, only the gentle call of the morning light and the growing warmth of the fire. The day's work begins without hurry. Outside the home, the ridge is a hive of quiet activity. This isn't just a place to sleep, it's a complete world. You can see designated workspaces, areas where the daily tasks of life unfold. Near one, a man sits on a worn wooden stool, carefully shaping a piece of flint. With practiced, precise strikes, he flakes off small pieces, crafting a new arrowhead. The sharp, rhythmic tick of stone against stone is a familiar sound, a soundtrack to creation. His hands are calloused but steady, his focus absolute. This tool will help feed his family. A little further down the ridge, the sound of rhythmic thumping can be heard. Two women are pounding grain, using heavy wooden pestles and a hollowed-out log as a mortar. They work in unison, their movements a graceful, practiced dance. They chat softly as they work, their voices a low murmur that blends with the sounds of the morning. Their conversation is about the weather, the children, the new clay pots that need firing. It's the simple, essential talk that weaves the fabric of community. Children are not idle, either. The older ones are already out, their laughter echoing as they lead the family's few goats to pasture along the grassy slopes. They know the land intimately, every dip and rise, every patch of sweet clover. Younger children play near the homes, their games mimicking the work of their parents. One small girl carefully arranges pebbles in a circle, pretending to build a hearth of her own, while a boy uses a stick to draw patterns in the dirt, just like his father carves on bone. As the sun climbs higher, the rhythm of the day settles. The workspaces are busy. Someone is tanning a hide, scraping it clean with a bone tool. The scent is strong, but it's the smell of progress, of a resource being transformed into warm clothing or a sturdy bag. Another person sits in the sun, weaving a basket from river reeds. Their fingers move with incredible speed and precision, a blur of motion creating something both beautiful and useful. Every object here tells a story of skill passed down through generations. The tools they use are simple but effective. Axes with polished stone heads for felling trees, bone needles for sewing, and clay spindle whorls for spinning wool into thread. Each tool is a testament to their ingenuity and their deep understanding of the materials around them. Nothing is wasted. A broken pot is ground down and mixed into new clay. A worn-out tool is repurposed. Life is a continuous cycle of making, using, and remaking. Midday arrives, and the sun is at its peak. Work pauses. Families gather again, this time outside their homes, seeking the shade of a lone, ancient tree that stands on the ridge. The meal is simple. Flatbread cooked on hot stones, some dried meat, and a handful of fresh greens gathered from the edge of the woods. They eat slowly, talking and sharing stories. This is a time for rest, for connection, for strengthening the bonds that hold their small community together. It's a moment of shared humanity, a ritual as old as the hills themselves. In the afternoon, the work changes. A group might head down to the river to fish with woven nets or to gather clay from the banks. Others might venture into the forest to gather firewood, mushrooms, or medicinal herbs. They move with a quiet confidence, their knowledge of the natural world a vital inheritance. They know which plants heal, which ones nourish, and which ones to avoid. The forest is their larder, their pharmacy, and their sanctuary. As the afternoon light begins to soften, turning the world golden once more, the people begin to wind down their tasks. The goats are brought back from the pasture, their bells clinking softly. The tools are carefully cleaned and put away. The sounds of work are replaced by the sounds of evening. The smell of cooking fires once again fills the air, this time with the savory aroma of a stew, bubbling slowly in a pot over the hearth. Evening is a time for family. Inside the home, the fire casts a warm, inviting glow. Shadows dance on the clay walls as the family gathers around the hearth. They share their evening meal, the food tasting all the better for the day's hard work. After the meal, it's time for stories. An elder might recount a tale of the ancestors, a myth about the creation of the world, or a legend of a great hunter. The children listen, wide-eyed, their imaginations soaring. This is how their history, their culture, and their values are passed on not through books, but through the living word, spoken in the soft glow of the firelight. As the last of the light fades from the sky, a deep quiet settles over the ridge. The fires are banked for the night, their embers glowing like sleeping eyes in the darkness. The families retire to their pallets, pulling soft furs over them. The sounds are now of the night. The gentle sigh of the wind over the ridge, the distant call of an owl, the chirping of crickets. It's a peaceful, ancient lullaby. Lying there in the darkness, they are surrounded by the familiar, the feel of the packed earth beneath them, the scent of wood smoke and dried herbs hanging in the air, the soft breathing of their loved ones nearby. It is a life of simplicity, but it is a life of richness, a life connected to the earth, to the seasons, and most importantly, to each other. On the silent ridge, under a canopy of brilliant stars, the people sleep, their dreams as quiet and profound as the landscape they call home. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope it brought you a sense of peace. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more chapters. Until next time, be well. Welcome bike history buffs and adventure seekers. Today, we're diving deep into the heart of an ancient American city, not to look at the grand earthworks, but to get our hands dirty with the very tools and treasures its people left behind. This is Chapter 9. Artisans of the Ancient City. We're about to uncover the incredible craftsmanship of the people of Poverty Point, a story told through stone, clay, and sheer ingenuity. Imagine standing here, nearly 4,000 years ago. What would you see? What would you hear? Perhaps the sharp crack of a flint knapper striking a stone, or the gentle scraping of a bead being drilled. The people of Poverty Point were masters of their craft, and the evidence is absolutely breathtaking. Let's start with the essentials, the tools that built and sustained this society. The spear points found here are masterpieces of form and function. These aren't just crude chunks of rock. They are works of art, meticulously flaked and shaped. Each point, whether intended for hunting deer in the surrounding forests or fishing in the bayous, tells a story of skill passed down through generations. The raw materials themselves are a testament to the vast network of this culture. We find stones sourced from the Washito and Ozark Mountains, hundreds of miles away. This wasn't a quick trip to the local quarry. It was an epic journey, a deliberate effort to acquire the best possible materials for their tools. This tells us these weren't isolated people. They were connected, resourceful, and had a deep understanding of geology and trade. But it wasn't all about practicality. The artisans of Poverty Point had a rich inner world, and they expressed it through beautiful, often mysterious objects. Take a look at these small, carved figurines. While many are fragmented, they offer a tantalizing glimpse into the spiritual and daily life of the people. We see what appear to be seated female figures, often without heads. Were these representations of goddesses, ancestors, or perhaps tools for shamanic rituals? Archaeologists debate their exact purpose, but what's undeniable is the care and intention put into each one. They weren't mass-produced. Each figurine is unique, a personal expression of belief or identity. They're a powerful reminder that these ancient people had complex thoughts about their place in the universe, just like we do today. And then there's the personal adornment, the jewelry of the ancient world. The drilled beads and pendants found at Poverty Point are simply stunning. Using rudimentary drills, likely made of wood and sand, these artisans would bore tiny, perfect holes through hard stones like jasper and hematite. Think about the patience that would take. The hours spent hunched over a single bead, slowly grinding away. Why go to such lengths? Because beauty mattered, status mattered. These weren't just decorations. They were symbols of identity, of community standing, or perhaps held spiritual significance. Wearing one of these polished, colorful beads was a way to connect with the Earth's beauty and to showcase one's place within the vibrant society of Poverty Point. Now let's talk about some of the most enigmatic objects. The carved and incised stones. We find plummets, or weights, shaped with incredible precision, often resembling owls or other animals. Were they simply weights for fishing nets, or did they have a ceremonial purpose? We see stone gorgets, polished flat pendants worn on the chest, sometimes etched with intricate geometric designs. These abstract patterns could be maps of the cosmos, family symbols, or purely artistic expressions. The ambiguity is part of their magic. It forces us to stretch our imagination and consider the depth of their symbolic world. The craftsmanship is so fine that it is hard to believe they were created with simple stone tools. It speaks volumes about their dedication to their craft and their sophisticated sense of design. But perhaps the most iconic artifacts of the site are the ones that give it its name. The Poverty Point objects. These are small, hand-molded balls of clay, baked to hardness in a fire. They come in all sorts of shapes conical, spherical, cylindrical, and more. For decades, their purpose was a complete mystery. But now, we have a pretty good idea. Poverty Point is situated on an alluvial plain, far from natural sources of rock. So, how do they cook their food? They innovated. They created their own stones. These clay objects were heated in a bonfire until they were glowing red hot, then transferred to an earth oven, a simple pit in the ground. Food would be placed among these hot clay balls and buried, allowing it to cook slowly and evenly. It was a brilliant solution to a geological problem. They couldn't find rocks, so they made them. We've found millions of these objects, a testament to countless meals shared by the community. They are the humble, everyday items that tell the biggest story of all, one of resilience, community, and incredible human ingenuity. So, when we look at these artifacts together, the deadly sharp spear point, the serene figurine, the perfectly drilled bead, and the humble cooking bowl, we see more than just old objects. We see the hands that made them, the minds that designed them, and the culture that valued them. We see a people who are deeply connected to their environment, who mastered difficult skills, and who expressed their creativity and spirituality in everything they did. They were not just survivors. They were artists, engineers, and visionaries. The artisans of Poverty Point left us a legacy not just in their monumental earthworks, but in these small, personal treasures that tell the intimate story of their lives. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the workshop of an ancient world. The story of Poverty Point is far from over, and every artifact we uncover brings us one step closer to understanding its incredible people. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever wondered how ancient people got things from far, far away? We often think of the past as isolated villages, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In ancient North America, there was a vast and complex trade network, a bustling economy that spanned thousands of kilometers, connecting communities in ways that are truly mind. Today, we're diving deep into Chapter 10 of this incredible story, exploring how materials traveled across the continent long before trains, planes, or even horses were used for transport. Imagine you're standing in an ancient village in the heartland of what is now the United States. You might see objects made from materials that are completely foreign to your local environment. Where did they come from? How did they get there? The answer lies in a sophisticated network of rivers and trails, used by traders and travelers for centuries. Let's start with copper. This wasn't just any copper. This was incredibly pure copper, sourced from the Great Lakes region, specifically places like Isle Royale in Lake Superior. Archaeologists have found artifacts made from this specific copper thousands of kilometers away, down in the Mississippi Valley and even along the Gulf Coast. We're talking about beautifully crafted tools, ornaments, and ceremonial objects. The people of the Great Lakes would mine this copper, often in its raw, native form, and then it would begin its long journey southward. It wasn't one person carrying a heavy load all that way. Instead, it was likely a relay system. One group would trade it to their neighbors, who would then trade it further down the line. Each exchange added value and moved the material further across the continent. It's like a grand game of pass-it-on, but with profound economic and cultural significance. Next, let's talk about soapstone. This soft, easy-to-carve stone was perfect for making durable cooking bowls and pipes. The primary source for this material was the Appalachian Mountains, a rugged range stretching along the eastern part of the continent. From these mountain quarries, soapstone bowls and other items would travel westward, deep into the interior. Imagine a family in the Ohio River Valley, hundreds of kilometers from the nearest mountain, cooking their meals in a sturdy stone pot that began its life in a quarry in the Appalachians. This wasn't a luxury item for the elite. It was a practical, everyday object. Its presence so far from its origin tells us that this trade was not just about exotic goods, but also about essential household items. The movement of soapstone demonstrates a steady, reliable flow of goods, suggesting well-established relationships and peaceful interactions between different groups. Then there's chert, a type of microcrystalline quartz. You might know it better by its common name, flint. Chert is fantastic for making sharp tools like arrowheads, knives, and scrapers. While chert can be found in many places, certain types were highly prized for their quality. For example, high-quality chert from the Ozark Plateau in modern-day Missouri and Arkansas was traded far and wide. Its distinctive color and texture allow archaeologists to trace it back to its specific source. When a finely crafted chert blade from the Ozarks is found at a site in, say, Illinois or Mississippi, it's a clear fingerprint of this ancient trade network. The people who controlled these quarries were essentially controlling a vital resource, much like countries today control oil reserves. This gave them significant economic and political power. Let's not forget the shiny stuff. Galena, a lead sulfide mineral, has a brilliant, silvery luster when freshly broken. It was ground into a powder to be used as a pigment for paint and body decoration. Some of the most significant sources of galena were in southeastern Missouri. This shimmering powder was highly sought after and has been found at archaeological sites across the Midwest and Southeast. Imagine ceremonial gatherings where people were adorned with sparkling paint made from galena that had traveled hundreds of kilometers. It speaks to a shared sense of culture and aesthetics, all connected by these trade routes. The desire for beauty and self-expression was a powerful driver of this long-distance exchange. And finally, let's journey to the Ouachita Mountains in Arkansas and Oklahoma. This region was a treasure trove of minerals. Things like novaculite, a very hard, fine-grained rock perfect for making exceptionally sharp and durable tools, were quarried here. Another important material was quartz crystal. These clear, beautiful crystals weren't just used for tools. They held deep spiritual significance. They were often found in ceremonial contexts, like burials of important individuals, or in sacred bundles. The fact that these powerful objects were being traded across such long distances shows that this network was not just about economics. It was also about sharing ideas, beliefs, and spiritual practices. The movement of these materials was accompanied by the movement of stories, rituals, and knowledge. So how did all this stuff move? The key was the river systems. The Mississippi, Ohio, Missouri, Tennessee, and Arkansas rivers formed a natural highway system. People used dugout canoes, capable of carrying significant amounts of cargo, to navigate these waterways. Traveling by river was far more efficient than trekking overland through dense forests and difficult terrain. The flow of the rivers naturally carried goods downstream, and even upstream travel was possible with paddling and poling. At key points where rivers met, you'd find major trade hubs, bustling centers of exchange, kind of like ancient port cities. It's important to picture this trade as largely peaceful. While conflicts certainly happened, the sheer scale and longevity of this network suggests that, for the most part, it was based on cooperation and mutual benefit. Groups would establish alliances and partnerships that lasted for generations. This wasn't a free-for-all. It was an organized system built on social relationships. Exchange was often embedded in ceremonies and rituals, reinforcing bonds between communities. A gift of Great Lakes copper to a group downriver wasn't just a transaction. It was a political and social act, a way of saying, we are friends, we are partners. This continental network connected people who may have never met face to face, but were linked through the objects they created, used, and valued. A piece of copper from the north, a stone bowl from the east, a flint knife from the Westies, weren't just things. They were the threads that wove together the diverse cultures of ancient North America into a single, interconnected world. The next time you look at a map of the United States, picture it not as a collection of states, but as a web of ancient rivers and trails, buzzing with the movement of people, goods, and ideas. It is a powerful reminder that connection and exchange have always been at the heart of human history. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into our incredible past. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through ancient history. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most intriguing questions about Poverty Point. Why was this massive, complex site even built? The leading theory, and the one that truly captures the imagination, is that Poverty Point wasn't a city in the way we think of one today. Instead, it was a grand ceremonial center, a monumental gathering place for people from all across the ancient American Southeast. Let's explore what that really means. Imagine, if you will, a world without calendars on our phones or clocks on the wall. The rhythm of life was dictated by the seasons, the cycles of the moon, and the movement of the stars. For the hunter-gatherer societies of the late Archaic period, these cycles were everything. They marked the time for hunting specific animals, for harvesting nuts and fruits, and for moving to new territories. It's believed that Poverty Point served as a massive real-world calendar and a central hub for these seasonal gatherings. People would travel for hundreds of miles, coming from different cultures and speaking different languages, all converging on this one special location. Why make such a long and difficult journey? For community, for connection, and for ceremony. These gatherings were likely timed to coincide with important celestial events, like solstices, or key moments in the yearly resource cycle, such as the peak of the autumn nut harvest. So, what happened when everyone arrived? Picture a massive festival, lasting 4 weeks, maybe even months. The air would be filled with the smoke of countless cooking fires. Archaeologists have found enormous earth ovens, and vast quantities of animal bones and fish remains, suggesting that enormous feasts took place here. These weren't just simple meals. They were communal events that brought people together, reinforcing social bonds and celebrating abundance. Imagine thousands of people sharing food, stories, and laughter. This act of feasting together was a powerful ritual in itself, a way of creating a shared identity among diverse groups. But it wasn't just about food. Poverty Point was a center for profound ritual and ceremony. The great mounds, particularly Mound A, were likely the stages for these important events. Perhaps community leaders or spiritual figures stood atop of these high places, addressing the crowds gathered below. The specific rituals are lost to time, but they might have included rites of passage for young adults, ceremonies to honor ancestors, or rituals to ensure a successful hunt or a bountiful harvest. The very act of building these mounds was a communal and likely spiritual act. Moving millions of cubic feet of earth by hand required incredible cooperation and a shared sense of purpose that must have been deeply meaningful. The concentric earthen ridges, where people likely lived during these gatherings, weren't just random formations. Their precise layout, aligned with astronomical events, suggests they were a key part of the site's ceremonial function. Living on these ridges, you would have been physically and symbolically oriented within a sacred landscape. Your daily life would have been intertwined with the cosmos. It's possible that different clans or family groups occupied specific sections of the ridges, turning the entire site into a living map of their social world. Beyond formal ceremonies, Poverty Point was a vibrant hub for cultural exchange. Think of it as an ancient trade fair and cultural festival rolled into one. People brought materials from their homeland's exotic stones like flint from the Ohio River Valley and steatite from the Appalachian Mountains. They didn't just trade the raw materials. They traded the finished products. The famous Poverty Point objects, the clay cooking bowls, were made on site. But the intricate stone pendants, plummets, and tools were crafted with incredible skill. This was a place where artisans could share techniques, where new ideas could spread like wildfire. A new way of hafting a spear point, a new design for a decorative bead, a new style of pottery. All these innovations could be shared and carried back to distant communities. The sheer variety of artifacts found at the site, made from materials sourced from across the continent, is a testament to this incredible network of interaction. And then there was the storytelling. In a world without writing, oral traditions were paramount. Around the campfires at night, elders would have passed down creation stories, heroic epics, and essential knowledge about the world. Songs would have been sung, and dances would have been performed. These gatherings were a living library, a place where the cultural memory of dozens of different peoples was shared, preserved, and enriched. Children would have learned the stories of their ancestors and the ways of neighboring tribes, fostering a sense of a larger, interconnected world. So, why did it end? After centuries of use, the gatherings at Poverty Point ceased. The reasons aren't entirely clear. It could have been environmental change, a shift in social structures, or perhaps the rise of new ceremonial centers elsewhere. But the legacy of Poverty Point lived on. The ideas and connections forged here likely influenced the development of later mound-building cultures throughout the Mississippi Valley, like the Adena and Hopewell traditions. When we look at Poverty Point today, we're not just seeing ancient Earth, we're seeing the ghost of a vibrant, multicultural metropolis of ceremony. It was a place built not for defense or for daily commerce in the modern sense, but for the fundamental human needs of community, celebration, and shared belief. It stands as a powerful reminder that for thousands of years, people have sought to create special places to come together, to share what they have, and to connect with something larger than themselves. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Poverty Point. It's a place that continues to reveal its secrets, and every discovery adds a new layer to its incredible story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more deep dives into our planet's ancient mysteries. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through the echoes of the past. Today, in Chapter 12, we're tilting our gaze upward, from the earthly remains of an ancient city to the vast celestial theater above. We're exploring the cosmic alignments and the lunar sky, uncovering the profound connection these ancient people had with the sun, moon, and stars. As we've walked through the plazas and along the mysterious ridges of this forgotten metropolis, a question begins to form. Was there more to their design than meets the eye? Could these structures be more than just buildings and pathways? What if they were also giant astronomical instruments, built to map the heavens and mark the passage of time? Imagine standing in the central plaza thousands of years ago. The world around you is quiet, illuminated only by the flicker of torches and the brilliant canopy of the night sky. There are no city lights to wash out the stars, no modern distractions. In T's world, the sky wasn't just a beautiful backdrop. It was a calendar, a clock, and a sacred text. The movements of the sun, the phases of the moon, and the dance of the constellations were deeply woven into the fabric of daily life, agriculture, and spiritual belief. The rising sun marked the start of the day, its position on the horizon signaling the changing seasons. The solstices, the longest and shortest days of the year, were moments of immense power and significance. Archaeologists and astronomers have started to notice intriguing patterns. Certain mounds and ridges seem to align perfectly with the sunrise on the summer solstice. Picture it. On that specific morning, the sun would crest the horizon at a precise point, casting a beam of light directly down a long, narrow plaza or illuminating the peak of a specific mound. This wasn't a coincidence. This was architecture as a celestial event, a way to anchor a pivotal moment in the year to the very ground beneath their feet. It was a celebration of the sun's power and a marker for planting and harvesting cycles. Similarly, other alignments point to the winter solstice, the moment of the sun's rebirth and the promise of returning light. From specific vantage points within the city, the setting sun on the shortest day of the year would disappear behind a designated ridge or notch in the landscape. These alignments turned the entire city into a dynamic calendar, allowing its inhabitants to track the solar year with remarkable precision. The plazas weren't just open spaces for gathering. They were viewing platforms, stages for the grand drama of the cosmos. These solar alignments would have been focal points for community-wide ceremonies, festivals of light and life that reinforced social bonds and a shared understanding of their place in the universe. But the sun was only half of the story. The moon, with its ever-changing face, held its own unique mysteries and rhythms. The lunar cycle, from new moon to full moon and back again, was a more intimate monthly clock, and the ancient builders of this city seem to have been just as obsessed with it. We're now discovering evidence of complex lunar alignments, which are far more difficult to track than the sun's. The moon's path across the sky is more complicated, with its risings and settings shifting over an 18.6-year cycle known as the lunar standstill. Amazingly, some of the city's most prominent earthworks appear to line up with the moon's most extreme northern and southern rising and setting points during this cycle. These so-called lunar standstills are rare and subtle events. The fact that these ancient people not only observed them but also encoded them into their permanent architecture is simply staggering. It speaks to generations of patient skywatching, of knowledge passed down from elder to child. They built these mounds and ridges as a way to predict and commemorate these significant lunar moments. Imagine the awe of witnessing the full moon rise perfectly over a sacred mound, an event that might only happen once in a generation. It would have been a powerful affirmation of their connection to the cosmos, a sign that the universe was ordered and knowable. Why go to such incredible lengths? For these ancient people, the sky was not separate from the earth. The celestial and terrestrial realms were deeply intertwined. Aligning their city with the sun and moon was a way of creating harmony between their world and the heavens. It was a way of bringing cosmic order down to earth, sanctifying their home, and ensuring its stability and prosperity. These alignments transformed the landscape from a simple place to live into a living, breathing expression of their worldview. Every solstice sunrise, every major lunar standstill, was a moment when the city itself became an active participant in the cosmic dance. As we stand here today, looking at these same mounds and plazas, we are seeing more than just earth and grass. We are seeing the ghost of a celestial map. We're looking at a testament to a culture that possessed a deep, sophisticated understanding of astronomy, a knowledge born from thousands of nights spent staring at the sky. They were not just builders, they were astronomers, mathematicians, and philosophers. They used their entire city as a canvas to paint their understanding of the universe. The ridges that zigzag across the landscape might trace the path of a specific constellation. The groupings of mounds might represent a star cluster, mirrored on the ground. This perspective changes everything. The city is no longer a static ruin, but a dynamic instrument, designed to interact with the light of the sun and the moon. The people who lived here weren't just passively observing the sky. They were actively engaging with it, using it to structure their society, their beliefs, and their very perception of time. Their world was one where the rising of the sun over a certain mound could signal the time for planting, and the setting of the moon behind a ridge could call for a sacred ceremony. The sky was not a distant, abstract concept. It was a vital, living part of their community. As we conclude this chapter, let's take a moment to appreciate this incredible fusion of science, art, and spirituality. The next time you look up at the night sky, remember the people who lived here? Remember that, for them, every star, every phase of the moon, every sunrise, was part of a grand, interconnected story, a story they wrote. Not in books, but in the very earth itself. Their legacy reminds us that for much of human history, looking up at the sky was not just an act of wonder, but an act of survival, connection, and profound meaning. Thank you for joining me on this celestial journey through an ancient city. If you've enjoyed this exploration, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more chapters of our story. We have so much more to uncover together. See you next time. Imagine a thriving city, bustling with thousands of people, engaged in a construction project so massive it would rival the wonders of the ancient world. They're building monumental structures, intricate canal systems, and vast public plazas. Now, imagine this city without a king, without a queen, without a pharaoh. No palaces, no royal tombs, no single ruler whose face is carved into every stone. How is this possible? This is the great sociopolitical puzzle that has left archaeologists and historians scratching their heads for decades. Welcome to the mystery of the city without a king. When we think of ancient civilizations, we picture powerful rulers. Think of the pyramids of Egypt, built for the pharaohs, or the Great Wall of China, ordered by emperors. Centralized authority seems to be the engine that drives grand-scale construction. A king or a ruling elite commands resources, mobilizes, labor, and enforces a grand vision. This model is so common throughout history that we almost take it for granted. But what if there was another way? What if a society could achieve incredible feats of engineering not through top-down command, but through bottom-up cooperation? This is precisely the question that certain archaeological sites around the world force us to ask. In places like the Indus Valley, with cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, or even in parts of ancient North and South America, we find extensive urban planning and monumental architecture, but a conspicuous absence of the usual signs of kingship. There are no sprawling palaces that dwarf the surrounding homes. We don't find elaborate royal burials filled with treasures meant for a ruler's afterlife. The art doesn't depict godlike kings smiting their enemies. Instead, we see a remarkable uniformity in housing. Sophisticated public works, like sanitation systems that served everyone, and a sense of order that doesn't seem to emanate from a single, all-powerful source. So, if there was no king, who was in charge? The first theory archaeologists considered was that maybe we just haven't found the evidence yet. Perhaps the palaces were made of biodegradable materials, or the royal tombs are still hidden, waiting to be discovered. It's a valid point. Archaeology is a science of missing pieces, but as decades of excavation pass and more of these cities are uncovered, the lack of evidence starts to become evidence in itself. The sheer consistency of this pattern across multiple sites suggests this wasn't an accident. It was a choice. These societies were organized differently. This leads us to a more radical and fascinating idea. What if these cities were governed not by a single ruler, but by a collective? Instead of a pyramid-shaped power structure with a king at the top, imagine a more web-like distributed model of governance. Power wasn't concentrated in one person, but was shared among different groups. This could have taken many forms. Perhaps it was a council of elders, with representatives from various clans or families coming together to make decisions. Think of it like a board of directors for a city. They would deliberate, negotiate, and reach a consensus on important matters, like where to build a new granary or how to manage the water supply. Another possibility is a system based on different social or economic groups, like craft guilds. The Potter's Guild might manage the clay pits and kilns. The Metalworkers Guild would control the flow of copper and bronze, and the farmers' collectives would organize irrigation and harvests. Major public works projects would then be cooperative efforts, with each guild contributing its expertise and labor. In this scenario, authorities taskespasi, the person who knows the most about water engineering, leads the canal project, not because they are a king, but because they are the most qualified. Power is earned through skill and reputation, not inherited by birthright. This idea of a communal or cooperative society is incredibly appealing, but it also raises tough questions. How do you resolve disputes without a final authority figure? How do you mobilize thousands of people for a long-term construction project that might take generations to complete? Motivation is key. In a monarchy, the motivation might be fear of the king's wrath or the promise of reward. In a cooperative system, the motivation has to be intrinsic. People have to believe in the project. They have to see its value for themselves, their families, and their community. The construction itself might hold the answer. Maybe these monumental projects were not just functional, but also ritualistic. Building a great temple or a public plaza could have been a central part of the community. Religious and social life. The act of building together would forge social bonds and reinforce a shared identity. It wasn't just work. It was a communal ceremony, a way of expressing their connection to each other and to the cosmos. Everyone had a stake in the outcome because the project belonged to everyone. This shared purpose could be a force just as powerful, if not more so, than the command of a king. Think about the planning involved. These ancient cities often show a stunningly regular grid layout. Streets run at perfect right angles, and city blocks are of a standardized size. This implies a sophisticated level of surveying and planning that had to be agreed upon and implemented across the entire community. It suggests a shared set of rules and a collective agreement to abide by them. This isn't chaos. It's a different kind of order. It's an order that arises from consensus and shared principles, rather than being imposed from above. This is what some researchers call heterarchy, a system where different sources of authority exist side by side, without a single one being dominant. Of course, this is not to say these societies were perfect utopias. There was likely still social stratification. Some families or groups were probably wealthier or more influential than others. But the key difference is the scale. The gap between the most and least powerful was likely much smaller than in a kingdom. Wealth and power were more evenly distributed. It was a system designed to prevent any one person or group from accumulating too much control. This might be why we see a focus on public works that benefit the entire population, like drainage systems and public wells, rather than on monuments that glorify a single individual. The investment was in the community itself. So, how do archaeologists debate this? They look at the fine-grained details of the archaeological record. They analyze the distribution of high-quality goods. Are they all found in one large house, or are they spread out among many? They study the skeletons to look for differences in diet and health, which can indicate social inequality. They examine the workshops and production centers. Are they centrally controlled, or are they small, independent operations scattered throughout the city? Every piece of pottery, every brick, and every bone becomes a clue in solving this socio-political puzzle. The debate is far from over. New discoveries and new analytical techniques constantly challenge our assumptions, but the very existence of these kingless cities forces us to rethink our basic ideas about power, society, and human potential. It shows us that there isn't just one way to build a civilization. The story of humanity is far more diverse and creative than we often imagine. These ancient people, without kings or queens, managed to create complex, orderly, and enduring societies. They built their world together, brick by cooperative brick, leaving behind a legacy that challenges us to this day. They proved that the strongest structures are not always built by the command of one, but by the hands of many. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this puzzle as fascinating as I do, please hit the like button and subscribe for more journeys into the mysteries of the past. Let me know in the comments what you think. Was it a council, guilds, or something else entirely? See you next time. Imagine traveling back in time, not with a machine, but through the objects left behind by ancient hands. Welcome to our exploration of art, ritual, and symbolism, where every carving and every shape tells a story. Today, we're delving into the heart of ancient cultures, decoding the silent language of their most sacred and mysterious artifacts. These aren't just museum pieces. They were the very fabric of spiritual life, tools for healing, and vessels for ancestral stories. Let's start with iconography. Picture a skilled artisan, carefully carving a symbol into a piece of shell or stone. Maybe it's a soaring bird, a coiled serpent, or a human figure with supernatural features. These weren't random decorations. Each image was a concentrated burst of meaning, a visual prayer. The thunderbird, for instance, might represent power, storms, and the sky world, while a serpent could symbolize the underworld, water, and transformation. Seeing these icons on a pot, a gorget worn around the neck, or painted on a cave wall, was a constant reminder of the cosmic order, the forces that governed their world, and their place within it. These symbols were their alphabet of the sacred, instantly recognizable and deeply understood by everyone in the community. They were shorthand for entire myths and belief systems, passed down through generations. Now, let's hold a figurine in our mind's eye. Small, often made of clay or stone, fitting perfectly in the palm of a hand. Some are so abstract, they're barely recognizable as human, while others are incredibly detailed, showing specific postures, clothing, or facial expressions. What were these little figures for? Were they dolls for children? It's possible, but many archaeologists believe they played a much deeper role. Perhaps they were effigies used in healing rituals, where a shaman would focus spiritual energy into the figure to cure an ailment in a person. Or maybe they were representations of ancestors, kept in homes to honor the family line and seek guidance from the spirits of those who came before. Some female figurines, with exaggerated features, are often interpreted as symbols of fertility and creation, used in ceremonies to ensure the health of the people and the bounty of the harvest. Each figurine was a personal, tangible link to the spiritual realm, a companion in a world where the physical and the mystical were one and the same. And what about the very land itself? Demons. No? Demons. We often see them as simple hills, but to their builders, they were monumental symbols, architectural expressions of their cosmology. Imagine a community coming together, basketful by basketful of earth, to construct these massive structures. Some mounds were flat-topped, serving as platforms for the homes of chiefs or important temples, literally elevating the leaders closer to the sky world. This wasn't just practical, it was a powerful political and religious statement. The chief wasn't just a ruler. He was a conduit between the people and the gods. Other mounds were conical or dome-shaped, often used as burial places for the elite. By interring their honored dead within the earth, they were perhaps returning them to the womb of the mother goddess, ensuring their safe passage to the afterlife. The very act of building a mound was a communal ritual, reinforcing social bonds and reaffirming their shared beliefs. The mounds reshaped the landscape to mirror their understanding of the universe, creating a sacred geography where daily life was lived on holy ground. So, how did all these elements, icons, figurines, and mounds come together? Let's imagine a ceremony. It's dusk, and the community is gathered at the base of a large platform mound. At the top, silhouetted against the fading light, the spiritual leader stands. They might be wearing a gorget, carved with a powerful sun symbol, holding a figurine meant to channel ancestral power. They begin to chant, telling the story of creation, the story of their people. The symbols they wear, the objects they hold, aren't just props. They are active participants in the ritual, imbued with spirit and power. Perhaps they use a specially decorated pot to serve a ceremonial drink, its painted icons activating the potion's spiritual properties. Maybe a sick person is brought forward, and a shaman uses a specific figurine to draw the illness out, burying it later to cleanse the patient. These objects were the technology of their spiritual world. They made the intangible tangible. They allowed people to see, touch, and interact with the forces of the cosmos, with their ancestors, and with their own deepest beliefs. Think about storytelling before written language. How did you ensure that your history, your values, your most important lessons were not forgotten? You embedded them in art. A series of carvings on a wooden staff might not just be decoration. It could be a mnemonic device, a sequence of images that guides the storyteller through a complex epic. A painted deer hide could be a celestial map, or a chronicle of a great battle. The patterns woven into a basket could tell the story of the first woman who learned the craft from a spider's spirit. Art was the library, the history book, and the scripture all rolled into one. It ensured that the knowledge of the elders would be passed to the children, creating an unbroken chain of tradition that stretched back to the beginning of time. These objects weren't just passively beautiful. They were active agents in the preservation and transmission of culture. They were the voices of the past, speaking to the future. In every artifact, from the grandest mound to the smallest bead, we see a universe of belief. We see a people grappling with the big questions. Where did we come from? What is our purpose? What happens when we die? Their art and rituals were their answers. They were a way of finding meaning, of maintaining balance in a world full of mystery and power. By studying these objects, we're not just learning about the past. We're connecting with a fundamental human impulse, the need to create, to symbolize, and to reach for something beyond our everyday experience. They remind us that for much of human history, art was not separate from life. It was essential to it. It was a language of the soul. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the symbolic world of our ancestors. It's a privilege to share these stories with you. If you found this exploration as fascinating as I do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the past. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you might have. We'll see you in the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey through history, where today we explore a story not of conquest or conflict, but of harmony and balance. Chapter 15 takes us into the heart of an ancient society that thrived for thousands of years, not by dominating nature, but by living as a part of it. How did they manage to support a large population without depleting their resources? The answer lies in a profound understanding of environmental harmony. Imagine a world where every action is weighed against its impact on the future. This was the reality for these inhabitants. Their relationship with the land was built on a deep, almost spiritual respect. They didn't see the forest, the rivers, or the animals as commodities to be exploited, but as partners in a shared existence. This philosophy wasn't just a belief. It was a practical guide to survival that ensured prosperity for generations. Let's delve into the ingenious methods they used to maintain this delicate, ecological balance. Let's start with hunting. For these people, hunting was a sacred act, governed by strict rules and rituals. It wasn't about the thrill of the chase, but about sustenance. They practiced what we now call selective hunting, targeting only what was needed and avoiding young animals or breeding females. This ensured that animal populations remained healthy and stable. They understood the life cycles of the species they depended on, timing their hunts to coincide with periods of abundance and avoiding critical breeding seasons. This wasn't just common sense. It was a sophisticated form of wildlife management, passed down through generations. They used every part of the animal, from the meat for food to the hides for clothing and the bones for tools. This nose-to-tail approach meant nothing was wasted, honoring the life that was taken. Now, let's turn to the waters. Fishing was just as crucial and just as carefully managed. Instead of casting vast nets that would indiscriminately sweep up everything in their path, they used more precise, sustainable methods. Weirs and fish traps were cleverly designed to catch mature fish while allowing smaller, juvenile ones to escape and grow. These structures were often built collaboratively by the community and were a testament to their engineering skills and ecological knowledge. They also understood the importance of spawning grounds, protecting these vital areas to ensure the future of the fish stocks. Like with hunting, there were seasons for fishing, allowing populations to recover. This foresight prevented the kind of overfishing that has devastated so many modern fisheries. It was a system that provided a reliable source of protein year after year, without mortgaging the future. Beyond hunting and fishing, the gathering of plants, fruits, and other resources was a cornerstone of their daily life. But again, this was done with incredible care. When they harvested medicinal plants, they would only take a few leaves or a small part of the root, allowing the plant to continue growing. When gathering berries or nuts, they always left plenty behind for wildlife and for the plants to naturally recede. They practiced a form of early agroforestry, tending to certain patches of the forest to encourage the growth of useful plants. This might involve controlled burns to clear undergrowth and promote new shoots, or selectively pruning trees to increase fruit yields. This wasn't just passive gathering. It was active cultivation within a natural ecosystem. They were gardeners of the wild, subtly shaping the landscape to enhance its productivity while maintaining its biodiversity. What is truly remarkable is how this intricate system of resource management was woven into the very fabric of their culture. It wasn't enforced by a police force or a set of written laws. Instead, it was passed down through stories, ceremonies, and teachings from elders to children. The knowledge was communal. Everyone understood their role and their responsibility in maintaining the balance. They saw themselves not as owners of the land, but as its custodians, with a duty to care for it, for those who would come after them. This deep-seated cultural value was the ultimate enforcement mechanism, ensuring that the principles of sustainability were upheld by the entire community. This ecological balance wasn't a happy accident. It was the result of thousands of years of observation, experimentation, and accumulated wisdom. They had an intimate knowledge of their local environment that is almost unimaginable to us today. They knew which plants thrived in which soils, the migration patterns of birds, the subtle signs that heralded a change in seasons. This vast mental library of ecological data allowed them to make informed decisions, adapting their practices to the natural rhythms of the land. It was a science of its own, just one that was lived and breathed rather than written in textbooks. The result of all this, a society that was able to support a surprisingly large population for centuries, all within the carrying capacity of their environment. They lived in abundance, not scarcity. Their world was rich with game, their rivers teemed with fish, and the forests provided everything they needed. They demonstrate a powerful truth, that human prosperity and ecological health are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are deeply interconnected. By nurturing the environment, they nurtured themselves. As we look at the environmental challenges we face today, overfishing, climate change, the story of these ancient people offers more than just a fascinating glimpse into the past. It offers a powerful lesson. It reminds us that another way is possible, a way of life based on respect, foresight, and an understanding that we are part of a larger ecological web. Their legacy is a testament to the enduring wisdom of living in harmony with nature, a wisdom we desperately need to rediscover. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of environmental harmony. It's a profound story of how people can thrive by working with nature, not against it. If you found this perspective as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the past. Let me know in the comments what you think about these ancient, sustainable practices. Until next time, stay curious. Let's travel back in time, about 1,000 years ago, to a place that shatters our image of ancient North America. Forget small, scattered villages. I want you to picture a sprawling metropolis, a city built not of stone, but of earth, teeming with tens of thousands of people. This was the heart of a civilization, a vibrant hub of culture, trade, and belief. Today, we're exploring what life was like at the absolute peak of this incredible city. Imagine waking up to the sounds of a bustling community. The air is filled with the scent of wood smoke from countless hearths, the murmur of 1,000 conversations in a language now lost to time, and the rhythmic beat of artisans at work. From the top of the largest mound, a massive, terraced pyramid of earth, you could see it all. The city spreads out before you, a complex network of plazas, neighborhoods, and smaller mounds, all meticulously planned. Down below, the Great Plaza, a vast open space larger than dozens of football fields, is already a hive of activity. This was a city of specialists. Let's walk through the artisan district. Here, you'd see skilled hands transforming raw materials into objects of beauty and power. Potters, their hands covered in clay, are shaping elegant vessels, some for daily use, others intricately decorated for sacred ceremonies. Flint knappers are striking stones with precision, their sharp percussion ringing through the air as they create razor-sharp arrowheads and finely crafted blades. You'd see shell workers, carefully carving intricate designs into marine shells that have traveled hundreds of miles to get here. Weavers are turning plant fibers into strong textiles and colorful fabrics. Each workshop is a center of knowledge, passed down through generations. Now, let's head towards the central market, the beating heart of the city's economy. The energy here is electric. People from all walks of life are gathered, their voices a lively hum. Merchants have laid out their wares on blankets. You'd see goods from all over the continent, copper from the Great Lakes, shimmering in the sun, beautiful, iridescent seashells from the Gulf of Mexico, miles and miles to the south. Mica, a mineral that glitters like silver, brought from the mountains to the east. Obsidian, a volcanic glass, perfect for tools, all the way from the west. This wasn't just a local market, it was an international trading center. People are bartering, exchanging corn, dried meat, and local crafts for these exotic goods. It's a testament to a vast and sophisticated trade network that connected communities across North America. Look toward the river, the city's great highway. Dozens of dugout canoes, expertly carved from massive trees, are arriving and departing. Some are local families, heading out to fish or tend to fields on the other side of the water. Others are long-distance travelers, traders who have navigated the winding river systems for weeks to reach this great city. Their arrival is an event. They bring not just goods, but news, stories, and ideas from distant lands. They share tales of their journeys, of the people they've met, strengthening the bonds that tie this metropolis to the wider world. As the sun climbs higher, people gather in the smaller plazas. Here, storytellers captivate audiences of all ages. Children sit wide-eyed as they hear the great myths, the creation stories, the tales of heroic ancestors and powerful spirits. These oral traditions are the library, the history, and the moral compass of the community. They explain the cosmos, the changing of the seasons, and humanity's place within it all. The storyteller's voice rises and falls, their gestures animated, bringing the past to life for everyone. This city was also the spiritual and political center of its world. Imagine a great ceremony taking place on the Grand Plaza. Thousands of people are assembled, their faces turned towards the great mound. At the summit, the ceremonial leaders, adorned in elaborate regalia of feathers, copper, and shell, stand silhouetted against the sky. They are the keepers of the sacred knowledge, the intermediaries between the physical and spiritual worlds. The air is thick with the smoke of sacred herbs and the sound of drums and rattles. Chants rise from the crowd, a unified voice expressing a shared faith and a common identity. These ceremonies weren't just religious events. They were moments that bound the entire society together, reinforcing social structures and a collective sense of purpose. They aligned the community with the rhythms of the cosmos, marking solstices, equinoxes, and important agricultural dates. Life wasn't just about grand ceremonies and trade, though it was about community. Picture the neighborhoods where extended families lived and worked together. People attending to their gardens, growing the corn, beans, and squash to form the foundation of their diet. UDC groups collaborating to build and maintain their home sturdy structures of wooden poles and woven mats, covered in a plaster of clay. You'd hear laughter as people play games, like a popular one involving rolling a stone disc and throwing spears at it. There's a powerful sense of cooperation. Building a massive earthwork mound or a defensive wall wasn't the work of a few. It required the coordinated effort of the entire community, working together for a common goal. As dusk begins to settle, the city takes on a new character. The markets wind down, and families gather around their fires for the evening meal. The aroma of roasting corn and savory stews fills the air. It's a time for sharing food, for conversation, and for strengthening the bonds of kinship. The elders share their wisdom, parents teach their children, and the community relaxes after a day of hard work. As darkness falls, the stars emerge in a sky, free from modern light pollution. From the top of the great mound, the city below would be a pattern of twinkling fires, a mirror of the constellations above. It was a world deeply connected to nature, to the cosmos, and to each other. This was not a primitive society. It was a complex, dynamic, and thriving urban center. It was a place of innovation, of art, of faith, and of deep human connection. Standing in the heart of this earthwork metropolis at its peak would have been an awe-inspiring experience. It was a city that, for a time, was one of the greatest in the world. Remembering this helps us appreciate the true depth and diversity of the human story on this continent. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, please like this video and subscribe for more explorations into our incredible past. Welcome back to our journey through history. Today, we're exploring one of the great historical mysteries. Why do great cities decline? It's rarely a single, dramatic event like a blockbuster movie. More often, it's a slow, quiet unraveling, a story of gradual change over generations. We're diving into Chapter 17 of this grand tale, focusing on the subtle forces that can lead to the decline of even the most magnificent urban centers. Think of it less as a sudden collapse and more as a slow fade, driven by shifts in climate, the very earth beneath their feet, and the evolving patterns of human life. So, let's peel back the layers and look at the fascinating, non-dramatic theories behind why a bustling metropolis might one day fall silent. One of the most powerful, yet slowest agents of change is the climate itself. Imagine a thriving city, built on the foundation of a stable and predictable environment. For centuries, the rains came when expected, the growing seasons were reliable, and the harvests were plentiful. This predictability allowed for complex societies to flourish. But what happens when that predictability vanishes? Climate change, even subtle shifts over decades, can be devastating. A slight decrease in annual rainfall might not seem like much at first, but year after year, it adds up. Rivers that once flowed robustly might begin to shrink. Reservoirs could dry up, and the water table might drop, making wells harder to dig and maintain. For an agricultural society, fields that were once fertile might become less productive. The types of crops that have sustained the population for generations might struggle to grow. This doesn't mean a single year of famine. Instead, it's a gradual squeeze. 1 year, the harvest is just a little bit less. A few years later, there's another slightly disappointing yield. Food becomes more expensive. Stored surpluses dwindle. The general prosperity that allowed for art, grand architecture, and specialized labor starts to erode. People aren't starving in the streets overnight, but the foundational abundance that supported the city's greatness begins to crack. This environmental stress can create a domino effect, leading to social and political tensions as resources become scarcer. Now, let's talk about rivers. For many ancient cities, a river was its lifeblood. It was a highway for trade, a source of drinking water, and the key to irrigating crops. The very location of the city was likely chosen because of its proximity to a powerful river. But rivers are not static. They are dynamic, living parts of the landscape. Over long periods, rivers can change their course. This process, known as avulsion, can happen gradually or sometimes more quickly due to a major flood. Imagine a city built on the banks of a mighty river. Its ports are bustling, its merchants are wealthy, and its fields are well. Then, over a few decades, the river starts to carve a new path a few miles away. Suddenly, the city's port is high and dry. Boats can no longer reach its docks. The intricate network of irrigation canals no longer connects to its water source. The city is, in effect, stranded. It hasn't been conquered or destroyed, but its fundamental connection to the world has been severed. The economic engine stalls. Trade has to be rerouted, which is often inefficient and costly. Farmers have to find new ways to water their crops, if they can at all. The city that was once perfectly positioned for success is now in a strategically poor location. This isn't a dramatic disaster, but a slow, logistical nightmare that can bleed a city of its vitality over time. Alongside these environmental pressures, we have to consider the human element. People are not passive victims of their environment. They are adaptable and mobile. When conditions in one area start to decline, people often vote with their feet. This doesn't mean a mass exodus overnight. Instead, it's a gradual redistribution of the population. A family of farmers might decide that their land is no longer productive enough. They hear of better opportunities in a different valley or a newly developing region. So, they pack up and move. Then their neighbors do the same a few years later. A skilled artisan might find that there are fewer wealthy patrons in the city to buy their goods. So they move to a town where the economy is still booming. This process is like a slow leak. The city doesn't empty out all at once, but its population slowly decreases. The most ambitious, skilled, and resourceful individuals are often the first to leave, seeking better prospects elsewhere. This creates a brain drain and a skill drain. The city loses its taxpayers, its soldiers, its builders, and its innovators. The vibrant, crowded streets become a little quieter. Some neighborhoods start to look neglected. The tax base shrinks, meaning the city government has less money to maintain infrastructure like walls, roads, and public buildings. This, in turn, makes the city an even less attractive place to live, encouraging more people to leave. It's a self-perpetuating cycle of decline, driven by individual choices rather than a single catastrophe. Another crucial factor is the shifting of trade networks. No city is an island. Its prosperity is often tied to its position within a larger network of trade and communication. A city might be a key hub on a major trade route, a crossroads where goods, ideas, and people from different cultures meet. This position brings immense wealth and prestige. But these networks are not permanent. New political alliances can form, creating new, more favorable trade routes that bypass the old city entirely. A new sea route might be discovered that is cheaper and faster than the old overland route. A rival city-state might rise in power and actively divert trade to its own centers. When a city loses its place in the trade network, its economic heart begins to fail. The merchants who brought wealth to the city move elsewhere. The flow of exotic goods and raw materials dries up. The local economy, which may have been built around servicing this trade, begins to contract. The jobs disappear, and with them, the people. The city, once a cosmopolitan center of the world, becomes a provincial backwater. Its grand marketplaces fall silent, not because they were destroyed, but simply because the world moved on. The flow of commerce, like a river, has found a new, easier channel, leaving the old one to slowly dry up. So, when we piece all these theories together, we see a complex and interwoven picture. It's rarely just one thing. Imagine a city facing a slightly drier climate. This puts stress on its agriculture. At the same time, its main river is slowly shifting its course, making trade more difficult. Seeing the writing on the wall, some of the most enterprising citizens begin to move to a new, rising city on a different trade route. This combination of factors creates a powerful, downward spiral. The decline is gradual, almost imperceptible on a day-to-day basis. For the people living through it, it might not feel like a collapse. It might just feel like life is getting a little harder each year. The city's golden age becomes a distant memory for the grandparents, while the younger generation grows up in a world of diminished expectations. This gradualist perspective is so important because it's a more realistic and, in many ways, a more human story. It's a story of adaptation, of difficult choices, and of the slow, grinding pressures of environmental and economic change. It reminds us that civilizations are not monolithic, eternal structures. They are living, breathing systems, dependent on a delicate balance of climate, geography, and human networks. And when that balance is disturbed, the consequences unfold, not in a single, fiery explosion, but in a slow, quiet, and inexorable decline. It's a sobering but fascinating look at the true nature of historical change. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the subtle forces that shape history. It's a great reminder that the biggest stories are often the quietest ones. If you found this interesting, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. See you next time. Hello and welcome back to our deep dive into the mysteries of Poverty Point. In our last chapter, we explored the incredible artifacts left behind by its ancient inhabitants. Today, in Chapter 18, we're jumping forward in time to tell a different story. The story of rediscovery. How did modern archaeology uncover this forgotten metropolis and piece together its astounding scale? For thousands of years after its builders vanished, Poverty Point lay hidden in plain sight. The massive earthworks, weathered by time and covered in vegetation, were simply part of the Louisiana landscape. Local farmers knew about the strange mounds on their land, but no one understood their true origin or significance. To them, they were just hills, maybe old Indian burial mounds, but certainly not the remains of a city. The first real hint of what lay beneath came not from an archaeologist, but from a keen-eyed amateur. In the 1830s, a man named Jacob Walter, a plantation owner, noted the unusual semicircular pattern of the ridges. He even drew a map, a remarkably accurate one for its time. But his observations were largely ignored by the scientific community. For almost a century, Walter's map remained a historical curiosity, and Poverty Point continued to slumber. The early 20th century brought a new wave of interest in American antiquities. Archaeologists were beginning to understand the complexity of pre-Columbian societies in North America. Clarence B. Moore, a wealthy Philadelphian, was one of these pioneers. He traveled the rivers of the Southeast in his steamboat, the Gopher, excavating mounds and collecting artifacts. In 1913, Moore visited Poverty Point. He dug into some of the mounds and ridges, but his methods were, by today's standards, quite crude. He found some interesting pottery and stone tools, but he completely missed the bigger picture. He concluded the site was just a series of disconnected mounds, not a unified, planned settlement. His report was brief, and once again, the true nature of Poverty Point slipped through the cracks. It was a classic case of not being able to see the forest for the trees. The real breakthrough, the moment that put Poverty Point on the archaeological map, wouldn't happen for another 40 years. And it happened, quite literally, from the air. In the late 1940s, and early 50s, aerial photography was becoming a powerful new tool for geologists and archaeologists. Dr. James Ford, an archaeologist with the American Museum of Natural History, had been working in the lower Mississippi Valley for years. He suspected there was something special about the Poverty Point site, but ground-level surveys were slow and confusing. The sheer size of the earthworks made them impossible to grasp from a single vantage point. Then, in 1953, everything changed. Ford obtained a set of aerial photographs taken by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. As he pieced them together, the image that emerged was breathtaking. For the first time, the grand design was revealed. The 6 concentric C-shaped ridges, forming a massive amphitheater facing the river, were undeniably a single, planned structure. The scale was staggering. From the air, you could finally see that this wasn't a random collection of mounds. It was a city. Ford's heart must have been pounding. He realized he was looking at one of the largest and most complex ancient constructions in the entire Western Hemisphere. This aerial revelation kicked off the first major scientific excavations at the site. Ford, along with his colleague Robert Neitzel, began a series of carefully planned digs. Their goal was to confirm what the photos suggested and to understand who built this incredible place and when. This is where the detective work really began. They dug trenches across the ridges to understand how they were built. They discovered that the ridges weren't just piles of dirt. They were constructed in stages, with layers of soil and clay, and were dotted with post holes and fire pits, evidence of ancient homes. People had lived on these ridges. This wasn't just a ceremonial center. It was a bustling residential area. But one of the most surprising discoveries came from what they find. Based on what they knew about other large ancient sites, they expected to find a lot of evidence of agriculture: corn, beans, squash. But they found almost none. Instead, they found millions of tiny baked-to-clay objects, the famous Poverty Point objects we've talked about. They found countless spear points, plummets for fishing nets, and tools for processing nuts and seeds. The picture that emerged was shocking. This enormous city, this marvel of engineering, was built not by farmers, but by hunter-gatherers. This idea completely upended the prevailing theories of the time, which held that only agricultural societies could create large, permanent settlements and monumental architecture. Poverty Point was breaking all the rules. The sheer volume of material was almost overwhelming. They found artifacts made from stone sourced from hundreds, even thousands, of miles Hawaii. Copper from the Great Lakes, flint from Ohio and Tennessee, steatite from the Appalachian Mountains. This wasn't just a city. It was the heart of a continental trade network, a hub of commerce and culture that drew resources from across North America. Each dig, each trench, each sifted bucket of soil added another layer to the story. The slow, meticulous work of archaeology was gradually revealing the complexity of this ancient society. It was like assembling a giant puzzle, where each artifact was a tiny piece. And the final picture was a civilization more advanced and sophisticated than anyone had dared to imagine. Over the following decades, archaeologists like John Gibson and others continued to build on Ford's foundational work. They used new technologies, like magnetometry and ground-penetrating radar, to map the site without digging, revealing even more hidden features. They refined the dating techniques, pushing the timeline for the site's construction back to around 1700 BCE. The realization of how old and how large Poverty Point truly was dawned slowly, not in a single flash of insight, but through decades of patient, dedicated research. From a few odd hills on a farmer's field to a forgotten map, from a steamboat survey to a game-changing aerial photograph, the rediscovery of Poverty Point is a testament to the power of curiosity and the slow, steady process of scientific discovery. Today, Poverty Point is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, recognized as a masterpiece of human creative genius. But the work is far from over. Archaeologists are still excavating, still analyzing, still trying to answer the big questions. Why was it built? How was it organized? And why, after centuries of prominence? Was it abandoned? The story of its rediscovery is as fascinating as the story of its creation, a modern epic of science and exploration. Join us next time as we delve into the engineering marvels of the earthworks themselves and try to understand the genius behind their construction. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more chapters in the incredible story of Poverty Point. Welcome back to our journey through history. In this final chapter, we're re-exploring one of the most crucial moments in the story of this incredible site. The path to becoming a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This isn't just about getting a fancy title. It's about securing a promise to protect this irreplaceable legacy for all of humanity, forever. So, what does it actually take to get on this prestigious list? It's a marathon, not a sprint. The process is incredibly rigorous, and it all starts with a nomination. A country must first create what's called a tentative list, which is an inventory of its most significant natural and cultural heritage sites. Getting on this initial list is already a huge step, signaling that a site has potential for outstanding universal value. From there, the real work begins. An exhaustive nomination dossier has to be prepared. Think of it as the ultimate historical and scientific resume. This document can be thousands of pages long, detailing every single aspect of the site. It has to prove outstanding universal value, or OUV. This is the core concept of the World Heritage Convention. It means the site's cultural or natural significance is so exceptional that it transcends national boundaries and is important for present and future generations of all humanity. 2. Properties. The site must meet at least one of 10 specific criteria. These criteria cover everything from being a masterpiece of human creative genius to bearing exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or a civilization which has disappeared, or containing superlative natural phenomena. The nomination dossier has to build an airtight case, backed by maps, photos, historical records, and conservation plans. It's a colossal undertaking for authorities of archaeologists, historians, conservationists, and government officials working together for years. Once the dossier is submitted to the UNESCO World Heritage Center in Paris, it undergoes an intense evaluation. For cultural sites, an organization called the International Council on Monuments and Sites sends experts on a field mission. These experts are like historical detectives. They visit the site, inspect its condition, verify the information in the dossier, and speak with local stakeholders, managers, and community members. They're looking to see if the site is authentic, if it's and if there's a solid management plan in place to protect it from future threats. This management plan is non-negotiable. It's not enough for a site to be amazing. There has to be a concrete, long-term strategy for its safeguarding. This plan outlines everything: conservation measures, visitor management, risk preparedness for natural disasters or other threats, and how the local community will be involved. UNESCO wants to see a sustainable plan that balances preservation with access and tourism. After the field mission, ICOMOS prepares a detailed evaluation report. This report includes a recommendation to inscribe, to refer, or to defer. Inscribe means, yes, it's ready. Refer means the nomination has potential, but more information or work is needed. Defer means it needs a more substantial revision. Finally, the big moment arrives. The World Heritage Committee, composed of representatives from 21 countries, meets once a year to make the final decision. They review the evaluations from ICOMOS and discuss each nominated site. The deliberations can be tense and political, but at their heart, they are about a shared global commitment to heritage. When the chairperson's gavel falls and declares a site inscribed, it's a moment of immense celebration and pride. It's global recognition of the site's immeasurable value. But getting inscribed is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new chapter of responsibility. Being a World Heritage Site comes with the highest level of international commitment to preservation. The site is now under the watchful eye of the global community. The country has a legal and moral obligation to protect it. Every few years, they must submit a report on the state of conservation. If a site is threatened by war, natural disasters, uncontrolled development, or poor management, it can be placed on the list of World Heritage in danger. This is a red flag, a call to action for the international community to rally and provide technical and financial assistance to save the site. It's a powerful tool to mobilize support and put pressure on governments to take their responsibilities seriously. Why does all of this matter so much? Because these sites are the anchors of our collective memory. They are the physical evidence of our shared human story, of our artistic achievements, our scientific discoveries, and our relationship with the natural world. They connect us to our past and give us a sense of identity and continuity in a rapidly changing world. For T-Site, achieving UNESCO status was a turning point. It brought international expertise, boosted tourism in a responsible way, and most importantly, it galvanized local and national efforts to protect it. It ensured that the stories we've been exploring throughout this series won't fade into dust. It guarantees that future generations, our children, our grandchildren, and their children will have the chance to walk these same grounds, to be inspired by the same ingenuity, and to feel the same sense of awe that we do today. This legacy is not just stone and mortars. It's the legacy of human achievement, of resilience, and of our capacity for greatness. Protecting it is our shared duty, and the UNESCO World Heritage designation is the world's most powerful promise to fulfill that duty. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. The story of this place is now part of your story, too. Let's continue to cherish and protect these treasures together. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Thanks for watching. For centuries, the ruins of ancient cities have captivated us, whispering tales of lost civilizations through their silent stones. We've walked their weathered paths, marveled at their colossal structures, and pieced together their stories from fragmented pottery and faded inscriptions. But what if those stones could speak more clearly? What if the very ground beneath our feet held secrets we never knew how to ask? Welcome to a new era of archaeology, where cutting-edge technology is pulling back the veil of time and revealing the past in stunning, unprecedented detail. Today, we're diving deep into how space-age tools are rewriting the history of these enigmatic ancient metropolises. Imagine flying over a dense, impenetrable jungle, a place where explorers on the ground might spend a lifetime and still miss the sprawling city hidden beneath the canopy. Now, imagine you have a superpower. The ability to strip away all that vegetation with the push of a button. That's essentially what LiDAR does. It's a technology that stands for light detection and ranging. From a plane or a drone, billions of laser pulses are fired towards the ground. Most bounce off the leaves and branches, but some find their way through the gaps, hitting the forest floor and reflecting back. By precisely measuring the time it takes for these pulses to return, scientists can create an incredibly detailed 3D map of the terrain underneath the trees. The results are nothing short of revolutionary. In places like the Amazon or the jungles of Cambodia, LiDAR has uncovered entire urban landscapes that were previously invisible. We're talking about complex networks of roads, canals, vast agricultural fields, and hundreds, even thousands, of undiscovered structures, from humble homes to monumental pyramids. It's like finding a secret chapter in a history book we thought was complete. These digital maps show us not just a single temple or a palace, but the entire functioning ecosystem of a city. We can see how people moved, how they managed their water, how they fed a massive population. It forces us to completely rethink the scale and sophistication of these ancient societies. They weren't just isolated ceremonial centers. They were bustling, sprawling urban environments, far more extensive and organized than we ever dared to imagine. But seeing the city's layout is only part of the puzzle. The next big question is, when was it built? For this, archaeologists turn to another powerhouse of modern science, radiocarbon dating. You've probably heard of it, but how does it actually work? Every living thing, from a giant tree to a tiny seed, absorbs carbon from the atmosphere. This technique has become the backbone of archaeological timelines. When excavators find a layer of ash containing charcoal, dating that charcoal tells them when a major fire or volcanic eruption occurred. When they find the preserved wooden lintel above a doorway, they can pinpoint when that part of the building was constructed. By collecting and dating multiple samples from different parts of a site, a detailed chronology emerges. We can see which areas were built first, which were expanded later, and when the city was ultimately abandoned. Radiocarbon dating moves us from educated guesses to a scientifically grounded timeline, allowing us to watch the city's life story unfold through the centuries. It helps us connect events, understand phases of growth and decline, and place these ancient civilizations accurately within the grand tapestry of human history. Now we have the where from LiDAR and the when from radiocarbon dating. But what about the how and the what? How did people live their daily lives? What did they eat? This is where the Earth itself becomes the ultimate archive, and the key to unlocking it is soil analysis. It might not sound as glamorous as laser mapping, but the secrets hidden in ancient dirt are astonishing. Archaeologists now use techniques borrowed from geology and chemistry to analyze soil samples with microscopic precision. They look for something called chemical signatures, the lingering traces left behind by human activity. For example, high concentrations of phosphorus can indicate where animal enclosures or waste dumps were located. Specific lipid residues, which are fats and oils, can tell us if a particular pot was used for cooking meat, vegetables, or perhaps brewing a type of beer. Even more incredible is the study of phytoliths and pollen. Phytoliths are microscopic silica structures that form inside plants. They're like tiny, durable fossils of the plants themselves, and different plants create different shapes. When a plant decays, these phytoliths are left behind in the soil. By analyzing the types of phytoliths found in a kitchen area, for instance, we can create a detailed menu of what the inhabitants were eating. Similarly, ancient pollen grains preserved in layers of sediment can tell us what crops were being cultivated nearby, and even what the broader climate was like. Was it a time of drought or a period of abundance? Did they primarily grow maize or something else entirely? Through soil analysis, we get an intimate glimpse into the diet, agriculture, and environment of the past. The invisible becomes visible, turning simple dirt into a rich narrative of everyday life. When you combine these technologies, the picture that emerges is mind-blowing. Let's put it all together. LiDAR reveals a sprawling network of raised fields and canals surrounding the city center, showing us a sophisticated agricultural system. Radiocarbon dating of charcoal found in these canals tells us they were being actively maintained around 800 AD. Meanwhile, soil analysis from a residential area reveals phytoliths from maize, beans, and squash, confirming what was being grown in those fields. The same soil sample shows high phosphate levels, suggesting a household garden was fertilized with domestic waste. Suddenly, we don't just have a collection of ruins. We have a living, breathing city. We see a farmer in the 9th century tending their crops in a complex irrigation system, bringing their harvest back to their family in a thriving neighborhood. These new technologies are doing more than just adding details. They are fundamentally challenging old assumptions. For a long time, many ancient tropical societies were thought to be small and sparsely populated, their development limited by the challenging jungle environment. But the evidence from LiDAR carbon dating and soil analysis proves otherwise. It shows us massive populations, brilliant engineering, and sustainable land management that lasted for centuries. These were not primitive groups simply surviving in the wild. They were masters of their environment, capable of building and sustaining cities that rivaled any in the world at that time. This revolution in archaeology is about giving these lost civilizations the credit they deserve, recognizing their ingenuity and complexity. The story is far from over. As technology continues to advance, who knows what else we will uncover? Perhaps we'll be able to analyze DNA from soil to identify the specific varieties of plants grown, or use new imaging techniques to read faded writing on pottery without ever touching it. Every new discovery opens up a dozen new questions, propelling us further on this incredible journey into the past. These ancient stones, once silent, are now speaking to us more clearly than ever. Thanks to the scientists who found a way to listen. The secrets are out there, buried beneath our feet and hidden in plain sight, just waiting for the right tools to bring them to light. Thanks for watching. And if you're fascinated by how technology is unlocking history, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the world of modern archaeology. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient history of North America. In our final chapter, we're zooming out to understand the true significance of Poverty Point. Where does this incredible site fit into the grand story of the continent? It's a question that takes us from its unique origins to its lasting legacy. For a long time, the story of complex societies in North America was thought to begin much later, with cultures like the Adena, Hopewell, and eventually the great city of Cahoot. These were the famous mound builders, the architects of massive earthworks that dotted the landscape of the Midwest and Southeast. But Poverty Point throws a fascinating wrench into that timeline. It predates these cultures by a millennium, and in some cases, even more. Imagine this. Around 1700 BCE, While many people across the continent were living in small, mobile family groups, a society in northeastern Louisiana was building one of the largest earthwork complexes in the entire Western Hemisphere. This wasn't a slow, gradual development. It was a cultural explosion. Poverty Point appears on the scene with a level of organization and engineering skill that seems to come out of nowhere. This is what makes it so unique. It's not just an early mound site. It's a precedent-shattering phenomenon. It forces us to ask, what was happening in the late Archaic period that allowed for such a monumental undertaking? The people of Poverty Point were, by old definitions, hunter-gatherers. They didn't have agriculture as we know, had no corn, beans, or squash that would fuel later civilizations. Instead, they mastered their environment. They were expert fishers, hunters, and foragers, harnessing the incredible bounty of the Mississippi River floodplain. This fact alone challenges our traditional models of societal development, which often tie large-scale construction and social complexity directly to farming. Poverty Point proves that there were other paths to greatness. Their success was built on a deep understanding of their local ecology and the ability to mobilize a massive labor force to exploit it efficiently. And what about their influence? Did the ideas born at Poverty Point ripple outwards and inspire later cultures? This is one of the most debated topics among archaeologists. There's no direct, unbroken line connecting Poverty Point to the later mound-building traditions of the woodland period, like the Adena and Hopewell. In fact, after Poverty Point was abandoned around 1100 BCE, there's a gap of several centuries before large-scale mound building resumes in the region. So, was it a dead end? A brilliant flash in the pan that faded away? Not necessarily. While there might not be a direct lineage, it's hard to imagine that the knowledge and skills demonstrated at Poverty Point simply vanished. It's more likely that its influence was indirect. Perhaps the memory of this great gathering place, this monumental center, persisted in the collective consciousness of the people of the Southeast. The very idea that humans could shape the earth on such a scale that they could create a central place for ceremony, trade, and community was a powerful one. Poverty Point may have established a template, a cultural blueprint for what was possible. When societies in the Ohio Valley and elsewhere began to build their own mounds centuries later, they might have been tapping into an ancient tradition, a memory of a time when their ancestors built something truly magnificent. The specific styles and purposes of the mounds changed over time, but the fundamental concept of creating sacred landscapes with earth and labor could have its deepest roots right here on the Macon Ridge. Let's think about the trade network. The sheer geographic scope of Poverty Point's connections is staggering. We're talking about materials moving from the Great Lakes, the Appalachian Mountains, and the Gulf Coast, all converging on this one spot. This wasn't just casual exchange. It was a highly organized system. This network established pathways and relationships that may have endured long after Poverty Point itself declined. These ancient highways of exchange laid the groundwork for the interactions that would characterize later societies. The Hopewell interaction sphere, famous for its own vast trade network, didn't emerge from a vacuum. It was built upon a foundation of long-distance connections that were pioneered and scaled up by the people of Poverty Point. Placing Poverty Point in the story of North America means recognizing it for what it is. One of the continent's earliest and most impressive, complex societies. It is a testament to the ingenuity of hunter-gatherer peoples and a challenge to our assumptions about what it takes to build a civilization. It stands as a monumental starting point, a bold declaration of human capability that echoes through the millennia. It's not just a collection of mounds. It's a cornerstone of American ancient history. It represents a pinnacle of achievement for the Archaic period, a time often viewed as a simple prelude to later, more advanced cultures. Poverty Point shows us that every period of history has its own peaks, its own moments of incredible innovation and cultural fluorescence. As we conclude our series, the story of Poverty Point leaves us with more questions than answers. And that's the beauty of archaeology. It reminds us that the past is not a settled, static story. It's a dynamic and ongoing investigation. The earthworks on the Mound Ridge are not just relics. They are an active invitation to explore, to question, and to marvel at the deep and complex history of the people who first called this continent home. The legacy of Poverty Point isn't just in the earth it shaped, but in the curiosity it inspires and the profound story it tells about the enduring power of human community. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the mysteries of Poverty Point. It has been an absolute privilege to explore this site with you. If you've enjoyed this series, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the ancient world. See you next time. As our journey through the monumental landscape of Poverty Point comes to a close, let's take a moment to stand in quiet reflection. Here, under the vast Louisiana sky, we find ourselves at the end of a long story. A story written not in words, but in earth, stone, and the enduring spirit of a people who lived thousands of years ago. What can we, in our bustling modern world, truly learn from these ancient whispers? Poverty Point isn't just a collection of mounds and ridges. It's a profound testament to the power of human cooperation. Imagine the scene. Over 3 millennia ago, thousands of people, from diverse backgrounds and distant locations, coming together. They weren't compelled by a king or coerced by an army. They were drawn by a shared vision, a common purpose. They moved millions of cubic feet of earth, basketful by basket. Each person's contribution, however small it seemed, was vital to creating something monumental, something that would outlast them all. This was community in its purest form. It teaches us that when people unite with a shared goal, the results can be truly staggering. In a world often fractured by division, Poverty Point reminds us that our greatest achievements are born not from conflict, but from collaboration. It's a powerful lesson in what we can accomplish when we choose to build together. Then there is the sheer creativity that permeates this landscape. The people of Poverty Point were artists and innovators. They looked at the raw materials around them, the local loess soil, the river pebbles, the distant novaculite stone, and saw infinite possibilities. They didn't just make tools. They crafted objects of beauty and function. The small, fired earth balls, the famous Poverty Point objects, were a brilliant solution to a cooking challenge, an invention born of necessity and ingenuity. The exquisitely carved plummets and gorgets, the polished stone beads, these were not just functional items. They were expressions of an aesthetic sensibility, a desire to create beauty and meaning. This creativity wasn't limited to a few skilled artisans. It was woven into the fabric of daily life. They remind us that the creative spark is a fundamental part of the human experience. It's the drive to solve problems, to improve our lives, and to leave our mark on the world in a way that is uniquely our own. Poverty Point whispers that innovation isn't just for geniuses. It's within all of us. Perhaps one of the most resonant lessons for us today is that of sustainability. For centuries, this massive community thrived. They hunted, fished, and gathered from the rich resources of the Mississippi floodplain. But their success wasn't based on exploitation. It was founded on a deep, intricate understanding of their environment. They lived in rhythm with the seasons, with the flooding of the rivers, and the migration of animals. Their very cosmology was tied to the land and the sky, with their great earthworks aligned to solstices and other celestial events. This was not a relationship of dominance, but one of respect and harmony. They understood that the land that sustained them was not an infinite resource to be plundered, but a living partner to be nurtured. In our age of ecological crisis, the people of Poverty Point offer a model of long-term thinking. They show us that it is possible for a large population to live well and prosperously without destroying the very ecosystem that supports them. Their legacy is a quiet call to reconnect with our own landscapes, to understand them, and to live in a way that ensures their health for generations to come. And finally, Poverty Point speaks to us of our deep, intrinsic human connection, a connection to each other, to the land, and to the cosmos. Standing on Mound A, looking out over the concentric ridges, as the sun sets, you can almost feel it. You can feel the echoes of the community that gathered here, the shared stories, the collective rituals. You can sense their connection to the cycles of the sun and stars, a connection so profound they inscribed it onto the very earth. They built this place not just as a settlement, but as a center, a place that drew people together and connected them to something larger than themselves. It was a place of pilgrimage, of trade, of shared identity. In our hyperconnected, yet often isolating digital world, Poverty Point reminds us of the fundamental human need for real, tangible community. It reminds us of the power of gathering in a shared space, of experiencing the world together, and of finding our place not just in society, but in the grand, unfolding story of the universe. So, as we leave this sacred ground, what do we carry with us? We carry the memory of a people who, without our technology, created a world of incredible complexity, beauty, and meaning. They looked at the earth and the sky and saw a home, a canvas, and a cathedral, all in one. The silence of Poverty Point is not an empty one. It is filled with the echoes of a peaceful, industrious, and deeply connected people. Their world is gone, but their message endures, written in the enduring earth. It is a message of hope, a reminder of our better angels, and a testament to the timeless potential of the human spirit. The ridges may be softened by time, the artifacts may lie in museum cases, but the lesson of this incredible place remains as clear and as bright as the North Star they once watched from these very mounds. It's a lesson in how to live together, how to create together, and how to build a world that lasts. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. And so, we arrive at the end of our journey, at least for now. We stand at the edge of a story that began 3.5 millennia ago, a story etched into the earth by hands we will never know, driven by minds we can only try to understand. Let's take these final moments together, not to solve every puzzle, but to simply sit with the wonder of it all. Let the sounds of the modern world fade away, and let's drift back, one last time, to the banks of the Bayou Mecan. Imagine the air, thick and warm, filled with the sounds of a thriving community, the scent of wood smoke, of roasting nuts, of the rich, damp earth itself. In your mind's eye, see the people. They are not abstract figures from a textbook. They are families, artisans, leaders, and children. They are laughing, working, telling stories under a sky filled with stars. Stars unobscured by the glow of our cities. They are building something monumental, something that would outlast their own lives, their children's lives, and countless generations to come. What was the spark that ignited this incredible undertaking? Was it a shared belief, a powerful leader's vision, or a collective response to a world that was changing around them? We've explored the theories of a bustling trade hub, a ceremonial center, a pilgrimage site, a place to gather and reaffirm their identity in a vast and sometimes unpredictable landscape. Perhaps the truth is not one of these, but a beautiful, complex tapestry woven from all of them. Think of the sheer effort, the movement of nearly 2 million cubic yards of earth, basketful by basket. There were no beasts of burden, no wheeled carts. There was only human strength, cooperation, and a will that is, frankly, staggering to contemplate. This wasn't the work of a subjugated people forced into labor. The evidence suggests a community coming together, sharing a purpose, building a world that made sense to them. The concentric rings, the plazas, the Mound A. Weren't just structures. They were the physical manifestation of an idea, a worldview made real. Let's float over the great plaza, that vast, open space at the heart of it all. Was it a stage for grand ceremonies? The sky its only roof? A marketplace alive with the exchange of goods and ideas from hundreds of miles away? Or was it simply a space for being, for gathering, a communal living room on an epic scale? The equinox and solstice alignments we see in the mounds hinted a deep, sophisticated understanding of the cosmos. These people were not just living on the earth. They were living with the sky, marking the passage of time, the turn of the seasons, in a dialogue written in earth and sunlight. And what of the mysteries that linger, like the morning mist over the bayou? The purpose of the countless clay objects, the Poverty Point objects, were they just simple tools for cooking? A form of ancient Earth-Avant technology? Or did they hold a deeper significance, used in rituals, their creation and use a part of the daily rhythm of belief? We may never know for certain, and there is a certain beauty in that. It leaves room for our own imagination to wander. To connect with these ancient people not through facts alone, but through shared human curiosity. The speed with which it all arose is just as breathtaking as the scale. Generations witnessing a landscape transformed, a world center built before their very eyes. And then, after a few centuries of vibrant life, the great work slowed and eventually stopped. Why did the river change its course, disrupting the very foundation of their society? Did new ideas or new people arrive? Or did the purpose that held them all together simply run its course, its cycle complete? The people of Poverty Point didn't vanish. They adapted. They changed. They moved. Their descendants carrying echoes of this incredible legacy forward, blending into the rich tapestry of cultures that would follow. Poverty Point is a profound reminder that history is not just a linear march of progress. Here, in the wetlands of ancient Louisiana, a hunter-gatherer society achieved a level of social organization, engineering, and artistry that defies all the old, simple categories. They challenge our assumptions about what is possible, about what civilization even means. They built a metropolis of Earth before the pyramids of Giza were a distant memory, before Rome was even a legend. As we drift toward the conclusion of our story, let the image of Mound A settle in your mind. The bird mound. Seen from above, it's a magnificent, silent sentinel. Imagine standing atop it as the sun sets, casting long shadows across the ridges and plaza. You are looking out over a world built by hand, by heart, by a shared dream. You are a part of a continuum, a tiny point in a story that stretches back thousands of years and will continue long after we are gone. The legacy of Poverty Point isn't just in the earthworks themselves, impressive as they are. It's in the questions it asks of us. It prompts us to look at the world around us and wonder what we will leave behind. What monuments, not of earth or stone, but of community and shared purpose, are we building today? It reminds us that even in the absence of written words, a story can be told with such power and grace that it resonates across millennia. The story of Poverty Point is a story of human ingenuity, of community, of a deep connection to a place and to the cosmos. It's a quiet story, one that you have to listen for carefully, past the noise of our own time. It's a story that doesn't offer easy answers, but instead gives us the far greater gift of wonder. So as you prepare to rest, let the gentle, enduring spirit of this ancient place be a source of peace. The people who live there are long gone, but the echo of their monumental effort, their complex lives, and their shared vision remains. A 3.5-year-old lullaby, sung by the earth itself. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope it has brought you a sense of awe and a moment of quiet reflection. Follow along for more stories from our incredible shared past. Sleep well.